All right, we should be live. Can you see me though? There it is. All right, we're good over here. Good over here. Just setting up Kick, Twitch, and chat. YouTube chat. It's been a fucking long day, but we're gonna get through this. All right, let's go to my channel, and let's go to my channel live. All right, we are here. Let me turn this down. Check, check, 1, 2. Let me go on the YouTube one. Go on search for myself. And now I can see chat. Perfect. All right. Make sure this volume is down. Ooh, there we go. There it is. Perfect. And then make sure this volume is down. Yeah, just turn that one off. And then go to here. See the news, what's going on today. I don't want to start with Pac-Man. Let's see what we got. Let's see. Turn this on. Oh, this is pretty crazy. I saw this on Twitter earlier. Let's just start with this. It's time to face what's really going on. We'll just start with this one, and then I'll get set up, and then I'll get the other videos up. We'll cover this. We'll cover some more Epstein. We'll cover a little bit of numerology that my buddy wants to show me. He was talking about it earlier today about numbers and not so much zodiac signs, like what we know with the the girls that we date, but more like numerology, I guess like an Eastern style. So he was really talking about that today. I'll look up a video that he wanted to show me. Also, Just Nikki sent me a new reference track that's not mastered yet. He just wanted me to check it out. I asked if we could check it out online. I'll try to put it up on the stream and see what we could do. I'll probably send it to my email. But let's start with this while I set everything else up.
Into Saturday, but here at Edding and Dickinson, unfortunately, we had a group of individuals out here around 12:56. Officers hear gunshots. They respond to the location. We have about 13 individuals who were shot, of which 3 have been pronounced. None of those are juveniles, but we have 2 juveniles who were shot. So we're working through this process now. It'll be a lengthy investigation, and as we recover, we have numerous rounds that were shot on the block. But we are focused on the work. July 4th has at times been very challenging, and many of you have covered that.
I was trying to figure out what the sound was. I think it's I think it's they're breathing on their mics on the video. I was like, what's that little rustling sound? But I think it's them breathing. My bad, I was tripping out.
But this has been a very challenging for a weekend, but the mayor has given us our charge. We will stay focused on the work. The men and women continue to do the work, and so we're not going back. I know this is going to be a very difficult weekend. Folks are going to wake up and hear about a lot of the incident that happened over the weekend, but we are not going back. We are going to continue to stay focused on these areas that have a significant level of violence. We're going to continue to deploy our men and women effectively. We're going to continue to address the challenges that we see each and every day and stay focused on moving forward and continue to make this area safe. But this has been a tragic weekend. It's been a very challenging weekend for the men and women. Again, but I'm still continue to be very proud of the work that they continue to do. We'll work with our partners to be able to address the issues we have on this block in particular, and we'll keep moving forward. But that's all I have at this point. It's significant investigation right now with the sheer number of people who have been shot. You're going to see that some went to Children's Hospital, but none of them. We have no juveniles who were pronounced as a result of this incident, but we do have 2 juveniles shot. We do not have the ages on many of these individuals at the time. We're still working through. Many of them showed up at different hospitals. We transported, I believe, at least 8 of the victims, and others were transported on their own. Rescue took 1. I'll stop there.
Was this block party going on? What's happening here?
So we had an incident reported Saturday night leading into Sunday morning. We had some issues down here, and the team deployed down here and addressed. We did make some arrests as a result of that. The team continued to monitor this block through the weekend. Came through earlier today. I had read some information about loud music. Those officers had been in the area. They dispatched to a priority incident not too far away. While doing that and coming back is when they heard gunshots on the block. This is coward stuff. This is when you see the size of this block. I mean, just individuals just shooting randomly into houses, into cars, children out here. I mean, this is.
Wait, what? There was just a random person that's just shooting people on the block? I hope they catch that dude. What the fuck? You're just chilling, and then a car just comes by and just shoots up the whole block for no reason. Bro.
This is coward, wannabe thug stuff. This is stuff that, it's hard to understand why individuals engage in this behavior. But as we do in all of our investigations, we will get to the root cause, and we will bring those individuals to justice.
Do you have any idea of how many people were around here? Are we talking in the 50s or
listen. This is. I don't know how many. I know reporting on as a event they had the night before, there was a large crowd out here. Many of the folks are up on their porches. Reports around 40 individuals may have been out here, but those numbers can surge. Particularly.
So wait. So it was a 2-day thing. First they shot up the block, and then they spun the block around again. Is that what happened? Is that what he's saying? Cause that's two. You gotta move out that area, bro. For real.
A block of this size, people go in, they come out, they see the police officers, they go back in. Clearly, there was something going on the block. You could see that.
How many shots were fired? Do you have a general?
It's numerous shots. I mean, numerous shots have been shot. Were fired. We believe there was probably an exchange of gunfire, but who was exchanging? We'll be going through that process now.
Can you repeat the numbers of injuries?
So there's 13 individuals who were, or 9 individuals shot and 3. Well, no, was it 10? 10 individuals who were shot and 3 individuals who were murdered. For a total of 13. And 9 individuals shot and 3. Well, no, was it 10? 10 individuals who were shot and 3 individuals who were murdered.
Damn. You'd think it'd be a lot more. Thank God it's not a lot more.
For a total of 13.
Wow.
You must came late, man. Ask that question again.
That's crazy, man.
Bro, it's a serious moment. And he's like, you must have came late, man. That shit kind of took me out. He's like, ask the question again. I'm fucking weak.
Yeah, 2 of them are juveniles. The remaining 11 are adults.
And any shooters in custody at this point? I know you said you took some people in.
We have one in the person who has a weapon. We're not sure what their involvement is in this, so we're still continuing to go through that part as to what their involvement is.
This is insane, guys, because y'all
31
covered.
others.
Yeah, y'all covered a story the other day.
Yeah.
Where was it at?
Indianapolis.
Yeah, Indianapolis.
That's
yeah.
insane.
I'm not gonna
Everywhere,
lie, I don't
man.
really have much positive to say here. These youths in these cities are out of control. There has to be something done about it. Like what could you do? What can you do about this? How can you stop this? I literally don't have the answer because obviously they don't fear jail, they don't fear death. People shouldn't be forced to live amongst these type of criminals. And I'm sorry, but when these type of people, when stuff happens to them, these type of people that conduct this type of behavior, I don't really feel bad for them. I just feel bad for
This is
all
the
these
video
people
right
laying
here.
around here.
Like, this was
Those are
crazy.
the ones I feel bad for. The shooters, I feel nothing for them.
This
I
is the
feel like-
original video, and the original video is pretty crazy, guys. Like just seeing the random people that weren't even involved in this, how
Trying to
they
hide for their life.
how they could be harmed from this is just it happens. Obviously, it happened.
It
For that,
happens a lot.
for 31 people. This was in Philadelphia. This is the one that he was talking about. So
31 people shot.
yeah,
Play
this
it
is-
again? Or can we not play it on here?
Not this one, yeah.
Not
So
that
this
one.
is the Philadelphia incident that happened. It's insane, man. And for 31 people to be injured, it was bystanders that got hit.
We gotta
For
keep
sure.
it. We gotta keep it
Plenty
100.
of
This
them.
is stupid behavior, but I mean, what can you expect from a city where 56% of the adults are functionally illiterate? These are literally stupid people. This is what happens when you have to live amongst poor and stupid people. This is the type of stuff they do, and I feel sorry for those people who are stuck living around this type of stuff.
It's just like
What the
it's just-
fuck?
It's insane to me.
That was crazy. What
they
the
would have an
fuck?
automatic pistol, a Glock with a switch that can automatically give you 10 plus years in jail. You just don't care about that.
52% of adults in Philadelphia are functionally illiterate.
Wow.
67% are considered low illiterate, meaning they read at a 6th to 8th grade level.
Wow.
And this is the type of shit that's going on there.
Holy shit, bro. That felt like 100 rounds in that one clip. Yo.
See the correlation? And I'm willing to bet that they're also poor.
So guys,
There's the correlation.
what's crazy to me is though, people were out, you know, on July 4th. And if you search any city where it's high crime rate, which we should expect, any city on July 4th, it was people that were injured. I literally typed in every single city, and some shots went off
it
in
always
every
happens.
single city.
Yeah, it's dangerous on the 4th of
St.
July.
Louis.
Hey, it's real out there on fucking 4th of July. People get drunk. They hear the pops going off. You know what I'm saying? The fireworks get them excited. They want to shoot the gun. Yeah, I get it.
But then the people didn't even report what happened in Chicago. 55 people got shot.
It's crazy.
55 people got shot and no one reported it. That's fucking insane.
55! And 8 of them died.
Where's BLM?
That's a great
Damn, the levels are crazy on this video. Sorry, guys.
question.
Where's BLM now?
Man, and it's crazy that like it's been going on because when I was just researching some of this stuff, like some of the past shootings, this past stuff that has happened, I have seen countless, I mean so many babies have died. I'm talking about 5-year-olds.
Oh,
dead,
shit.
Multiple of them in the same night because of that idiot behavior.
Nah,
Fuck.
it's evil. It's beyond idiotic. It's evil. You have to have a level of evil.
Like, oh my God, man. Like this happened I forgot what city what city this was in.
Four
5
kids.
children killed by gun violence over
They're all
4th
black.
of July weekend.
Where's BLM?
Jeez,
Where's
bro.
BLM? DC, San Francisco, Chicago, and Atlanta.
Wow.
Pathetic.
Oh, that's 2020.
No, I know, that's what I'm
Still.
saying. When you look at it, it's still insane.
Yeah.
Poor
Didn't hear
kids.
about this.
Poor kids, man. Poor babies. Just lives taken away for no need. You know, 4th of July, you think it's gonna be all fun, fireworks, you know, a memorable moment, and you end up getting shot, or your kid gets another shot, or your nephew gets another shot, or your niece gets another shot. You know, it's just like,
All right. 2020 was
These
the
are
height of
children.
BLM. They was screaming for George Floyd and didn't say a word for them.
This shit's heartbreaking, man. I mean, it happened.
I would say the whole BLM thing is like they go for more like a race thing. I don't think it's like black on black, right? Like that's not really what the BLM's for. It's for the injustice when it comes to whites and blacks. I think that's like BLM's main thing, right? So I wouldn't see why BLM would go to this. You know, that's not really what BLM's for, from what I gather.
Everywhere, man. It's just that's what's crazier about it. Like, mass shootings happen, but when you having them in every city from one demographic of people, I mean, how can you scream racism? How can you scream racism when you're harming your own people? I just don't get it, man. This shit's crazy, man. 4th of July.
Chicago.
Evil world. Evil. It's pure evil. That's the only way to address it. It's just these people who do this are evil.
Like,
They have demons.
like you're outside supposed to be shooting fireworks, having fun, and you're just gonna forget the kids, forget everything. I'm gonna shoot this person. Wow. Forget the bystanders.
The music, I'm telling you, the music influences it so much. The people who maybe, I don't know, just like, I don't know, guys. It's just evil. That's all I can say. We need Jesus.
I just think we have a epidemic of poor people. I don't think this is happening in the nice areas. In the high poverty areas, there's high crime, and then you have this on top of it. Like, I really feel for those people who have to live around this. Like, what an awful existence you have.
Dude, living in Chirac, fuck that, bro. That's a real situation over there all the time. I'm always just hearing stories like of people getting shot over there. And I mean, my family member used to live out there. She said the crime rate was pretty high, though. If you're not looking for trouble, you won't find trouble, is what she said. Which, you know, it's usually at dark time, at nighttime. It's when all the stuff happens, right? So I think like normal people don't really deal with it, but like if you're out in the streets past 10, maybe 9 p.m., stuff could go down.
endure. Like, that's so sad. This is America, the greatest country on earth, and you have to live in hell around a bunch of freaking savages. Like, it's horrible. Where's Brandon Johnson on this? He's always
I
talking
wanna
about how
know.
great his city is and people.
We shouldn't condemn them from his words. It's crazy that one report said it's 36 killings, and then as the night went on,
Got the 55.
he got
8
to
dead.
55 and 8 dead. Man, this shit's crazy, bro. Just to think that 55 people got shot by a bullet in one city is just insane to me, guys.
No BLM anywhere.
It's a conversation that, I mean, it's been people are having these conversations. Well, actually, it seems like they're not having these conversations.
I don't think people are having these conversations anymore because we're so used to Chirac being like this, you know? Like, we're used to Chicago just popping off. So it's just like a Florida situation. Like, Florida man goes and blah, blah, blah. Florida this, Florida that. Like, it's not surprising that it happens. So we're not really, like, moved by it as much. Like, it is sad, but it's like, it's kind of normalized now at this point.
Nah.
People take pride in whose hood is the worst. This is glorified in the music.
And actually, if you watch some documentaries, they tell you that that's what's cool now. It used to be cool to get money, but now it's cool to have a body.
Keep it 100, bro. There's nothing cool about the streets. There's no money there. There's no success there. There's only despair and idiocy and a cycle of stuck in despair, idiocy, and poorness.
And I just don't understand, like, anyone that is like, any kid from the hood can go watch any video or talk to any person in prison who was in the streets, and they will all tell you, this is not the way.
Yeah, it's no
They
doubt.
all
Yeah, but when you're young and you just see the glorifiedness, like you catch the body, you get the rumor, you get the legacy of that. But then I guess when you get stuck behind bars, and then when you get older and more mature reality hits, like you're actually stuck behind bars, it's kind of too late at that point. The decision was made when you were younger, and that's where all the glory was. You'll be remembered in that way to other people if that's what you wanted. So yeah, I can see what they're saying. Like, it's a trade-off.
It's a lot of people that don't have guidance for them to tell them
but
that.
there's
But they should
so
know
many
that.
there's so many people in
They should know
jail
that.
who have made video, and like they have told so many people, like Gillian Waller, like all these people have said that life is not it, and people still continue to believe that it is. It's too deep. It's rooted too deep within the culture. Is the music. The music is the root cause, I think. The music and the
Yeah, because I guess they're making the music in Chicago, for Chicago, by Chicago. So when you're rapping, it's like you're dissing kind of somebody else in that moment. And then that person hears the diss track that they just put out a week ago. So then they go ahead and make a diss track. And then when it go out and they see each other in the streets, it just pops off. So it's like, it's weird. It's like almost like Twitter in real life, but in a small condensed area.
This Holmes, the combination of those is terrible.
Yeah, I really wish Brandon Johnson speaks out about this, guys. But let us know. I mean, 55 people got shot in the city. That's insane, guys.
I don't think the mayor is going to say anything about that.
So I just know what y'all think in the comments, though. But it definitely is a conversation that needs to be had. What should we do with these people? And like y'all said on that video, I was cool with what y'all said. Venezuela,
Oh yeah, if you murder somebody, deport.
not a citizen anymore. Not mad at that. Let us know what y'all think in the comments.
All right, so I'm pulling up another Epstein. This isn't just about Epstein anymore, so we're going to go past. Oh, shit.
Oh, Canada.
That was fucking loud. So let's go to. I just pulled it up on my history. Before we get into anything crazy, like, let me just open up this pack real quick. Come on, I'm feeling lucky. Let's get another Dragonite so I could work on that deck that I need to build for Dragonite. I got one so far. Let's see what we got going on. Come on, give me something good. Where do we feel good, guys? I'm feeling kind of good on this one. I'll switch it around just so I can mark it. My intuition says nothing's right here. This one's kind of something. Feeling nothing, feeling nothing. All right, I'm gonna go with this one, the first one I marked. It feels like there's something in here. Come on, give me it. Oh, terrible. I got nothing. All right, let's go. That was a waste of time. But I did get some more points on it. Let me go to, they went too far. This isn't just about Epstein anymore. Let's see what this got to do.
Arrested, imprisoned, and found unresponsive in a maximum security cell where the cameras weren't working, the guards were asleep, and the names of the powerful he was connected to were never released. People were promised justice, but what they got was an insult. After 5 years of sealed documents, missing footage, and a client list that never came out, this isn't just a scandal anymore. It's a symbol of why so many people wanted to believe in justice, but now feel stupid for ever trusting it. You see, what made this case different wasn't that Epstein was just another predator with money. He had a private island, a private jet, and
Homie was set up. Homie was set up for like success. Like if he was Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, but like this is just fucking kids. Like what the fuck? How do you get that money?
connections to some of the most powerful people in the world. We're talking US presidents, royals, tech billionaires, Ivy League professors, and celebrities. And according to survivors, his island wasn't just a retreat. It was an isolated trafficking hub with guards that made it nearly impossible to escape. But in 2019, Epstein was arrested on federal sex trafficking charges. And for a moment, it seemed like justice might finally be served because this wasn't based on speculation. There were flight logs, surveillance data, and even mobile phone records placing over 200 devices on the island. And things looked even more promising when Ghislaine Maxwell, his closest associate, was convicted for helping him run it all.
The woman accused of helping a
She is a Mossad agent, by the way. Her father was a Mossad agent for Israel.
sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein recruit and abuse underage girls is in jail this morning.
Ghislaine Maxwell being arrested in New Hampshire.
Now, of course, no one believed that every secret would be revealed because if that list ever saw daylight, it wouldn't just expose Epstein. It would expose all of these elites that committed crimes on the island and worked hard to protect him. But still, people were expecting something. Some names, a leak, a document, anything to prove that the system could still shine a light into a place like this. People were waiting for the trial to start so that way they could see this client list exposed. But then, Epstein was found in his cell deceased. Now, we won't get into the details of that here, but let's just say the public was not buying it. This is why when the government finally released what they called as Phase 1 of the Epstein files, people paid attention, but were soon let down. The files didn't reveal anything new, just recycled headlines and carefully chosen material. Okay, now fast forward to this week as Phase 2 came about, the one people have been waiting years for. The FBI and the DOJ finally released an official report dropping a bombshell. They said that there was no client list at all, no blackmail, just a conclusion that apparently Maxwell was convicted for trafficking these girls to, well, no one other than Epstein. So after all the buildup, all the anger, all the waiting, people got nothing, not even closure. And that's when something deeper broke. For some on the right, this was supposed to be it. The moment that liberal elites finally got exposed. The files were said to be suppressed for the sole purpose of protecting the Democrats. The Clintons, Hollywood, academia, the deep state, all unraveling in one moment. Influencers like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and others have pointed to Epstein for years as proof of how deep the rock goes. For a lot of conservatives, this moment was supposed to be vindication. And then on the left, people saw the same delay, but for different reasons. For them, the elites were still being protected, just different elites. They pointed to how Trump, who once claimed that he would release the list, suddenly seemed to backpedal.
If you were president, would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these. Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least
Do you think that would restore trust? Help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others.
And even more recently,
He's getting scared. He said, well, not the Epstein one, but everybody else, fuck it. Because I'm not in those motherfuckers. Not the Epstein one.
Elon Musk shocked the world when he said that the reason that the client list hasn't been released yet is because Trump's name was on it.
Time to drop the really big bomb. @real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public.
But we know that already. We want to see everybody else's name too. That's the problem.
People who aren't politically aligned, they might not believe in conspiracies, but they're still not buying it. They've seen enough sealed files, suppressed reports, and institutional failures to know what this looks like. So at this point, it doesn't even matter what side you're on. Almost no one believes the official version. Everyone feels gaslit. And a big part of that is because so many people don't trust what they're hearing from the politicians, from these institutions that are supposed to be telling the truth, and especially from the media. And that's why I'm happy to have Ground News as the sponsor of today's video.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny? You hear everybody talking about it on both sides, meaning the people. But you don't hear anybody on both sides from the politicians. You don't hear Democratic politicians talk about the Epstein files being released. You don't hear Republicans talk about let the Epstein files be released. It's literally just the people of the citizens voting for the Democrats. The citizens voting for the Republicans are the ones that are pissed off. Everybody that is in office is fucking not talking about it. I haven't heard politicians say, I want to see those files. I haven't seen Joe Biden say anything about the files. I haven't seen Kamala say anything about the files. I haven't heard AOC say anything about files. I haven't even heard Bernie Sanders say release the files. There's nobody that I've heard in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party that has said release those files after this fucking gaslit drop.
Articles from over 50,000 sources and shows you how they're being covered across the political spectrum, letting you see the full picture. So, for example, when it comes to Ground News is also for especially news.com/. Now, back to what happens when everyone in culture feels gaslit by the government for too long and how that's causing a major break in people. When official reports start to really feel like an insult on our intelligence, we start to break in one of two ways. For some of us, the only way to survive this kind of betrayal is to get loud. We demand answers and we decide to rage against the silence. You see this response in everything from comments to Twitter threads to deep dives in videos. You see, there's this belief that if we just keep pushing, something will eventually crack, and that if we yell out enough, then someone will be forced to listen. And there's a deep need to believe this because the alternative, that no one's coming to fix it, that the guilty might win, that alternative starts to feel almost unbearable. So
no, what's gonna happen is we're gonna fucking start killing motherfuckers if it gets pushed to a certain point where we can't trust them no more. Just like Luigi shot the CEO, just like that cop shot the two lawyers, or Congress people, just like the fake cop, just like, I don't know, you just see these political killings that are happening. And it's going to be happening a lot more, unfortunately, if no one's going to be giving us what we want.
Response is outrage, which becomes a lifeline, a way to demand recognition that the truth still matters, even if it hasn't shown up yet. And then there's the people who stopped yelling, and not because they don't care, but because they cared for so long that it burned them out. They watched the hearings, followed the court documents, and waited for the list, and nothing happened. So eventually, they stopped expecting anything. They tuned out, and not from indifference, but from exhaustion. So for them, apathy isn't a detachment, it's a defense mechanism. It's what happens when hope feels like self-delusion and when
That's like when the Democrats lost and you see everybody freaking the fuck out. Same thing when Republicans lost and they freaked the fuck out too.
Starts to sound like a word we only pretend to believe in. But no matter if it's outrage or apathy, the results are the same. People are starting to give up on hope. Not just that
I'm not giving up. I'm getting more pissed off is what I'm doing.
Case will be resolved, but hope that any case like this ever will be. They've lost hope that powerful people will be held accountable and that the victims will be seen, heard, and remembered. They stop believing that the truth will ever come out, that evil will actually lose, even if it's just once. They stop believing that justice is real, much less worth fighting for. And this is what's left behind when justice disappears. They either burn out in outrage or go numb from apathy.
Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
So what happens when no one believes in justice anymore? What if no one ever makes this right? Or more importantly,
you already know what's gonna happen. People with guns is gonna come out. And that, honestly, I believe in freedom of speech and right to own guns, because for shit that doesn't sit well or you need defense from, you need to be able to handle the situation and not get caught up in it in the first place.
justice isn't really gone. What if it's just delayed? Now that is not the same thing as saying trust the system, because people have tried that and the system buried the truth. What I'm talking about is a deeper kind of justice. One that doesn't depend on courtrooms, leaked files, or corrupt leaders. And one that doesn't need permission to expose what really happened. Because the unfortunate reality is that if there's no one that really knows the truth and no one to expose it, then yeah, maybe justice really is dead. But for those of us that are Christians, we know that God sees and remembers everything. He doesn't need camera footage or unsealed documents. He sees and knows the victims, the girls that no one defended. And also, he knows the perpetrators. And that changes everything. For those of us who believe this, hope means refusing to believe that the final word belongs to money or to media silence. We can have hope in a perfect judge who knows what it's like to suffer at the hands of injustice and who's promised to judge everything that the system missed. And this isn't just hope for those that were abused, it's also a warning to the abusers, that power won't protect them and silence won't shield them, and that justice delayed is not justice denied. Even if the courts forget these girls, Jesus never will.
Yeah, but I kind of want to see these motherfuckers burn in real life. You know what I'm saying? I know I get, like, Jesus will be the final judge, but I want to see this shit happen in real life because they deserve justice here. All right? And not everybody believes in Jesus, all right? Not everybody is religious. Most of these fucking assholes that are doing these fucking things to these poor people are fucking agnostic. They don't give a fuck.
Them, he knows them by name, he knows everything about them, and he loves them. So if you've stopped hoping that they'll start to see that truth matters, and if you've stopped believing that justice is real, maybe it's time to stop looking to the courts. We can hope in them, but we won't place our ultimate...
That's what Luigi did. All I'm gonna say. He went through the... what'd he do? He went through the insurance, got denied, he tried to appeal it, got denied, he's in severe fucking back pain, got denied. He took shit in his own hands, got the CEO, and then now more people are getting health care that they need. I'm not saying he was right. I'm just saying that's what happened.
Hope in the judges of this world. Instead, we place it in the King, the ultimate judge of this world, Jesus Christ. All right, thank you guys so much.
Shout out to somebody that joined on the YouTube. I appreciate you.
For watching to the end of this video. It really does help us in the algorithm. And just so you know, we're a nonprofit ministry that's here to help people see the gospel when the world feels upside down. We run on viewer support, so if you want to help us to continue to do that, you can support us at the link down below in the description.
Anyways. Alright, let's go to something. CNN surrenders to Trump after painful admission. Bro, there's nothing. Hold on. The biggest slip of what the White House is writing about Epstein. Behavioral arts. Let's check this out. This is always interesting.
I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're...
I like behavioral stuff, like subtle or body language type stuff, you know, like little things people pick up on. I like this kind of stuff. I'm going to go ahead and subscribe to this guy. The Behavioral Arts. Let's go check out his stuff.
Some of the greatest success and also tragedy.
But they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results.
She was fucking up her fucking speech so bad. She usually doesn't do that, so.
That's transparency.
Sure. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Behavioral Arts. My name is Spidey, and I use my degree in sociology and psychology My certifications in criminal interrogation and body language analysis, and over 10 years experience as an award-winning mentalist to teach people behavioral analysis and practical psychology on stages and television shows all over the world. After years of empty promises, the American public was shocked earlier this week when the DOJ and FBI released their report on Jeffrey Epstein, and it contained pretty much nothing. No names, no list, no accountability. Shortly after the release of this underwhelming report, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and President Donald Trump were asked about the findings, and their answers were insanely revealing in terms of body language, facial expressions, and word choice. We have a lot to talk about. Let's dive right in. There is so much going on here. And before I dive into some of the behaviors here that are giving a lot away, I want to give those of you who haven't seen the video yet a chance to form your own opinion. So I'm going to show you the footage now of Caroline Leavitt. This is the U.S. Press Secretary.
Who hasn't seen this footage in chat or in the people that are joining me? Like, I hope you guys have seen what's been going on. All right, let's go through.
Answering questions about the Epstein report. Take a look at this and try to pay attention to what she's saying and her behaviors and see what stands out to you.
Caroline, the DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list. What do you tell MAGA supporters who say they want anyone involved in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes to be held accountable?
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable, and I would argue this administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration. And the Trump administration is committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the President's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out a memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child, which is not something.
Look, yeah, they had the child pornography thing. Yeah, I get that. But we got to see who's on those fucking tapes. Who the fuck is raping these kids? Show us that, or tell us that. You don't have to show us, but tell us. I mean, you're going to have to fucking prove it in court, right? I mean, might as well go with it. You already saw it. Might as well fucking get them in trouble. Anyways.
Appropriate for public consumption, but they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that. That's transparency.
Follow up on that,
sure.
Caroline. Okay, before we look at what's going on here, both verbally and non-verbally, I want to talk about the lie detection disclaimers. So, despite what we've seen on social media or in television shows, there isn't a single behavior that always means deception. In other words, there isn't a thing that all humans do when they're being deceptive. If there was such a behavior, trials and interrogations would last seconds, not hours or days. Now, despite that, we know that there are some behaviors that happen more often in deception. Doesn't mean every time, doesn't mean it happens for every single person, and doesn't mean that these gestures mean nothing but deception. These are things that could happen in other circumstances too, but happen a lot in deception as well. That's why there are two very important things to keep in mind. The first is clusters. One behavior rarely means anything because it could happen for a bunch of reasons. But if we see a lot of behaviors that are related to deception at the same time, that's a much better indication that there might be something going on. And the second thing is baseline. We're looking for change, not just random behaviors. So if a person does this behavior all the time naturally, then it really doesn't hold that much weight. And even with cluster
manipulation 101
baseline, we can never be certain. These indicate that there's a likelihood of deception, that I'd like to ask more questions in this case, but we can never ever guarantee based on behaviors that someone's being deceptive. With that said, let's dive into Caroline Leavitt's answer here and see if we're seeing multiple signs of deception and if they deviate enough from her baseline. In other words, do they deviate from the way she was answering questions before this one? The first thing that I'm sure some of you already noticed is an elevated blink rate. What that means is that the average human blinks somewhere between 14 to 21 blinks per minute. Now, for some people it's much higher, for some people it's much lower. That's why baseline matters. Now, Caroline Leavitt's baseline blink rate at the
that just reminded me. So my homegirl in San Diego, she's like, has this weird thing where she doesn't like people that like slow blink. Like they, you know, when people like just kind of like, she fucking hates those kinds of people. Like that, like she could write a whole book on that kind of stuff. It's so funny just to hear her rant about slow blinkers. Anyways, that every time someone talks about blinking, it reminds me of her. And she's amazing, by the way. She's awesome. And she's hella pretty. So, shout out to you.
That's very important because I don't know what her blink rate is when she's hanging out at a family barbecue, but at the podium, it tends to be near the top of that range, around 20 blinks per minute. But there are two things that consistently make her blink even more than that. One of them is when she's answering a stressful topic. And this is very normal. Research has shown again and again and again that when we're stressed, we blink more. In fact, this is why it's part of a deceptive cluster, because deception causes stress. The second place that we see her blink rate go up is when she's improvising an answer that she has to think about, as opposed to written statements or answers that she's prepared for. And that makes a lot of sense as well, because research has shown that with visual focus, or when we're looking at something or reading something, blink rate goes down. But when we're trying to access memory or we're trying to process something, blink rate goes up. Now, let's talk about her blink rate during the Epstein questions. I'm sure a lot of you noticed, but her blink rate skyrocketed. It was much higher than her baseline. So this indicates that she's either stressed, processing a lot, or both. But let's see what else we're seeing in her behavior. In the first part of her answer, there's certainly a lot of word gymnastics going on. There's an interesting word choice in the beginning that's very subtle but very powerful. When she says that this administration wants anyone who's committed a crime to be held accountable. But that wasn't really the question. The question was accountability as it relates to Epstein and people who were involved with him. And here she's separating the two. In other words, she's almost insinuating that, yes, we care about criminals, but not everyone who was close to Epstein or involved with Epstein or had dealings with Epstein is necessarily a criminal. We want criminals to be held accountable.
And that is true. She's not lying. Not everybody that's fucking near the guy is an asshole, like a pedophile. It's just there's certain people that keep going to him for that thing that he had, access to for them. So it's like, you don't even know half the time if someone, Sleepy Chad, what? Sleepy 205 Chad? Kitty Airy, what's up in Twitch? I'm not sure what that means. But what I was saying is that just because you're standing and hanging out with somebody, you don't really know what they are about. I mean, you could hang out with anybody in the town, but you don't know really what their background is, especially if you're high class, elite, or whatever the fuck you want, a lot of money. You're dealing with a lot of people. Not everybody knows everybody in that way. So you're just like chilling in the room with them, and it just happened to be Epstein. So you're like, I didn't know he was a pedophile. Oops, the emote is broken. Sorry. Oh, yeah, I don't have any emotes. I'm not sure how to work that stuff. I'm just really new on this stuff. So I'm really new to Twitch. It's my third day here. So thank you.
That's not really what he asked. Another thing that we're seeing a lot in her behavior in this entire answer, which deviates from her baseline, is this swaying, or what I would describe as shifting the weight as she's standing. Now, typically when she's pretty confident and she's punching things.
Yeah, she stands her ground. Oops, the emote is broken. My bad.
She goes up and down like this. And she's doing some of that here. We'll look at when she's doing it. But besides that, we're seeing this kind of shiftiness.
Yo, Kitty, where are you from? I'm in California, so I'm not sure if you're in California too, or all that stuff. Just want to see and say hi to you and how you're doing today. Hope you're having a great day, and tell us where you're from.
This is important to note because first of all, it's not part of her baseline, and second, it might indicate that her mind is going into fight or flight mode. Usually when we're faced with a conflict or something stresses us out.
Hey, California is the best. Well, not all the best, but it's the best vibes, I would say. Mike says hi. Oh, yo. Hell yeah. My boy Mike. Are you guys hanging out over there in Simi? Are you guys back in LA now, right? Hell yeah.
Goes into fight or flight, and we start shifting that weight because we're getting ready to react. This shiftiness is happening a lot as she's talking about the report itself and what the DOJ and the FBI did. And there's one point where...
Shout out to Simi. Hell yeah. Hey, welcome back from Texas. I hope you guys had fun out there, but welcome back. We did miss you. I can't wait to see you guys when I go visit LA. We plan on, I'm just waiting for my brother to figure out his schedule, and then we're going to line up our schedule with Tino, Keon, and Mike, and then we'll all get together and gets to work.
Suddenly we go back to that confidence where the blink rate normalizes a little bit, and she drives that point home with that punchier statement, and that's when she talks about how There was material they did not release because frankly it was incredibly graphic.
There was material they did not release because frankly it was incredibly graphic and it contained.
And this is such a mystery.
I'm like, if there's graphic content, we need to maybe not see all of it, but see the people that are involved with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course you don't want to release child pornography, but at the same time, the people that are doing the child pornography, you gotta show us.
She's talking about the things that they didn't release because it was incredibly graphic, then goes into, and it contained child
that don't make fucking sense. If they're doing the crime on the video, then that's all the proof we need. Why aren't they releasing that?
Which is not something that's appropriate for public consumption. Again, such a massive misdirect.
That's a fucking censorship problem at that point, bro. We're being censored now.
Of the question. Nobody asked about that material. Nobody wants to see that material. What people do care about.
We want to see who's doing the fucking material.
Is whether it's in that material or other material, who was affiliated with Jeffrey Epstein? Who did he have ties to? And she's moving away from that completely to, no, we can't possibly show you these videos. They're completely inappropriate for public consumption. No one cares. But then the big one is right at the end of that first answer. You want to talk about clusters? We have one here. So we're talking about a woman that if you listen to the entirety of this press conference and other press conferences, she is not someone who speaks with ums and ahs and hesitation. This is something that we call verbal leaks. And for some people, they happen all the time. There are people out there who talk, with a lot of these sounds. But when you don't, and all of a sudden we hear one or two, this indicates that you need a second to think. The brain is slowing down to try to process something. So right at the end, when she's about to go into how exhaustive their investigation was, we get this and then we get something that we call speech disfluency. So her words fall apart.
But they committed to an exhaustive investigation.
This is another big sign of the brain processing.
She's getting fatigued by trying to sway the answer. Her mind is trying to get there, but she's trying to talk to sound confident enough to make it look like she's not thinking too hard.
A lot, and our words start to stumble. Again, this is not someone who very often stumbles on her words. And this is why it's important. If it happens once, nothing else is going on, or it's part of the baseline, doesn't matter. But here we got a verbal leak, then speech disfluency, and that's just the beginning. The next two happen exactly as she's saying, exhaustive investigation, and they're very important because they are not part of her baseline. The first is a mouth shrug. The lips tighten and raise like that. And I watched a good chunk of this press conference, and I didn't see a single other mouth shrug out of place like this. Now, the research on shrugging is really interesting and found that any form of shrug, whether it's with the mouth, the shoulders, the hands, the eyebrows, any combination, denotes of disengagement, a lack of something. I don't know, I don't care, I don't agree. There's some kind of conflict there. And the fact that it's happening here, as she says, exhaustive investigation with this mouth shrug, means that there's some kind of uncertainty there, some kind of disengagement, and definitely contributes to our cluster. Now, at the exact same time as that mouth shrug, we see her look down. And this is part of her baseline, but it doesn't belong here. Let me explain. When she's giving answers that are either written or that she has data about, she often looks down to her podium. That makes sense. She came prepared for that question, she has the facts or the data, and she's looking down to get those numbers right, or sometimes entire written statements, she looks down to her notes. But with these answers, she doesn't look down any other time. She doesn't have some kind of script or data that she's conveying, so there's really no reason to look down at her podium in this case. And when she's improvising answers, it is not part of her baseline to look down. It's only there with written statements. So it's out of place here. This is most likely a quick second that she needs to reset this stumble that she has here, right? We saw the verbal leak, that speech disfluency, she's falling apart a little bit. There might be a thought in her head that she's disagreeing with, and this look down is very often just a quick second that we need to reset. Now, I know a lot of people are gonna look at it and go,
yeah, she's disengaging with her eyes with the audience so she can reface up. You know what I'm saying?
Gosh, she looked away, she's being deceptive. And that is absolutely a myth. The fact that we look away when we're being deceptive is not that reliable. Some people do, but the research has shown that some people increase eye contact when they're being deceptive. So baseline is so important. I can't tell you that her looking away 100% means deceptive, but I can tell you that it's related to stress or cognitive overload, and is part of a cluster here. So it is noteworthy. And finally, the last thing that we saw in this first question, which is part of the cluster, is that before she was even done answering the question, she was already turning away from it. And this is something she sometimes does. It's sometimes part of her baseline, depending on how happy she is to be talking about.
Yeah, she'll disengage like fuck off. Usually, she'll say like fuck off. I'm going to the next question when she doesn't like the question. She does it a lot.
Topic. When it's a topic that she's okay with, it's a question that she's fine answering, she stays with the person, finishes her question, and sometimes even maintains that eye contact to make sure they got it before she turns away. But whenever it's a question that she doesn't want to be answering or a topic that she wants to move on from, we see her body shift away before she's even done answering. It's a nonverbal way of signaling, I'm done with this, we're not talking about this. But in this case, unfortunately for her, she turned away and it was another question about Epstein. Now, before we look at that second question, which is basically clusters gone wild, let's talk a little bit about what this cluster means to me, because I certainly don't want anybody watching this video and saying, I watched this guy on YouTube say that there was a cluster of deception means for sure she's being deceptive. It indicates that there's a higher likelihood of deception.
Yo, Sweelie, what's up? I'd love to join your live stream whenever you're live. Add me on Discord. Yeah, for sure. Definitely add me whenever you want to. My name is Soul the Reject on Discord. You can find me there. We can always do a link up for live streams. I mean, as long as you're cool.
But there's a few things that we have to consider in this specific.
Oh, Connie, yeah, battle me on Pokemon after this game. All right, I'm down. Go ahead and send me the code for the private match, and then I'll put it in, and we'll have a match while I'm trying to cover this Epstein file shit.
It's true that these behaviors indicate a red flag, but nothing's ever 100% certain. So in interrogation or interview rooms, when we see these things, it just lets us know there's something going on here. You need to dig a little bit deeper. It might turn out to be nothing, or they were stressed for a different reason around this topic, but it just lets us know that we have to dig deeper here until we get that confession or the truth comes out. With that said, there's a few things to keep in mind in this particular situation. Even if we see very confident clusters of deception, there are three things that this could indicate. The first one is research has shown that people who fear not being believed behave the way liars do. So it's possible that some of these behaviors are there not necessarily because of deception, but that fear of not being believed. We need to keep that in mind. Second, even if it is due to deception, there are two possibilities in this case. The first possibility is that she's knowingly being deceptive. She knows the truth, she's been told the truth, and she's out here knowing that she's lying, and that's why we're seeing some of these behaviors. The second possibility is that she's been told something that she herself does not believe. And we would still see these tells with that. Especially something like a mouth shrug, like, I'm not so sure about that, would be very consistent with skepticism. So I can't tell you for a fact which of these things it is. I can only say these are the behaviors that seem suspicious. One thing I will say, however, is that whether it's her, whether it's the Attorney General, whether it's the President, whether it's anybody, there's one small thing they could have done to go a really long way on this, and it's instead of completely redirecting and going the other way, like, oh, I don't know what you guys are talking about, there's nothing there, be a little more relatable, be a little more human. It would go a long way to say something like, listen, I was shocked as well. I definitely thought that this investigation was going to turn out something, but it didn't. I know it's shocking, bear with us, but this is what we have. This is what the FBI has told us. If they came at it from that angle, we might look at it and go, okay, that's interesting how they kind of get where we're coming from. But there's this whole thing that we're about to continue seeing, which is like, nope, no clue what you guys are talking about. There's nothing there. There was an investigation done. There was nothing to find. There shouldn't be anything to find. Let's move on from Epstein. And that really creates a severe disconnect. Now we're going to look at the second question, and not just her behaviors when she's answering, but her reaction to the question as well. But before we do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, turn those notifications on for more behavioral analysis and practical psychology content, and also take a quick second to like this video because it really does help with the success of the channel.
That's transparency.
Follow up on that,
Sure.
Caroline. Okay, so the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network, on Fox News.
Got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
He had that receipt fucking ready, bro. He had that receipt ready for her ass. That shit was so funny.
He said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars. They have an operation going on right now called Summer Heat, which has our rate trending in the lowest direction in United States history. Their emphasis on...
All right, Mikey, what's that private one? What's that private match code so I can put it in? Let's see, private match versus private match. Here, how about I make one for us? Private match. Let's go to enter password. Connie. I'll just put Connie. Alright. Hey, Connie, the password is Connie. Go ahead and put that in. I'll see you in there. But you can see my deck, bro. That's not fair. Alright, go for it, bro. I'll be waiting.
Crime and locking up violent criminals has led to the arrest.
Hey, Mike, the password's Connie.
14,000 violent criminals. That's a 62% increase from the same time period last year. So this Attorney General and the FBI Director are committed to putting bad people
Mike type shit, let's go.
behind bars where they belong. They promised an exhaustive review. That's what they did. For any further details, I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
Okay, so as soon as that second reporter says that this is going to be a follow-up to the first one, we immediately see a bunch of things in her nonverbal communication. The first is a rapid...
Hey, but don't be looking at my cards, bro. Don't be looking at my cards. Hey, stream sniping, motherfucker. Don't be doing it.
...of blinks, almost to the point where it kind of looks like a flutter, but again, it's in that place of processing or stress. In fact, very often in pre-confrontation, we see these quick flutters. It's the person trying to process the emotion and the thought of the coming conflict. We also once again see that shiftiness that's happening. She's shifting her weight. And finally, we see the chin come in like this, which is a behavior that's very consistent with feeling insecure or defensive. When we perceive a threat or we're in a situation that we don't want to be in, we tend to protect the vital parts of the body. This includes wrists, the organs, and the neck. So that chin coming in, that shiftiness.
We'll see, bro. We'll see. We'll see if you win, bro. Just kidding. I got this old deck. It's just it's like for funsies, but I'll play the meta deck if you want me to.
In that blink, she's not happy to keep talking about this. Another thing that I want to throw in here is something that I noticed that has nothing to do with her behavior, but the reporter is quoting the FBI's report. And I know this because his speech slows down. He looks down at his notes and he's punching and slowly saying what this revealed. And what it revealed is no incriminating client list. And I find it interesting, if that's the quote from the report, that they would use the word incriminating. Did you find a client list that's not incriminating? Like, is there a list but you deemed it's not incriminating? Why do you need to specify? That word incriminating is very specific there. Why doesn't it say there's no client list? We don't know who his clients are. It's interesting, just a note. Now, as she begins the answer, we see her hands come up like this and gesture outwards as she talks about the Attorney General's statement. And this is really interesting to note because it's not an illustrator. Illustrators are hand gestures that we make when we're speaking to drive our point home. They don't paint a picture. And she sometimes uses illustrators. I wouldn't say they're a big part of her baseline. Some people talk a lot with their hands. I'm one of those people. She every now and then will use an illustrator to drive a...
I think I talk a lot with my hands. I'm not too sure. Usually I have a drink in my hand and I'm like fucking using gestures with my beer bottle, you know? But I don't really think about it.
Home. The reason I know this is not an illustrator is because illustrators usually happen on the punches and are very like brisk gestures, like bam, this and boom, that. And I might move outwards, but it's with the speech. In this case, it wasn't synced with her words. There wasn't a moment of emphasis there. They slowly moved outwards as she was talking about the Attorney General's statement. This is a gesture we might classify as a narrator. These are gestures that we use to paint a certain image. And sometimes they're conscious, like I'm showing you how big something was, but sometimes it's just because there's a thought in my head, and as I'm talking, I'm doing gestures that try to communicate what's in my head. And in this case, there's this broadening gesture. So it seems she's suggesting here that we should take a broader, open-minded look at what she said and not be so literal, but absolutely not. There are cases where that's okay, but this is a case where we need to absolutely, literally look at what she said, word for word, and we will do that in a moment. We'll look at exactly what Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, said about the client list. But before we do, let's look at a few more of the behaviors here because they all relate. Notice when she's talking about what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox News, we see a couple of things. First of all, when she says interview, we see the eyebrows come up as she looks at him, hand comes out, and there's this little bit of a head tilt, almost in a very disciplinary look towards him, like, hey, this was on your network.
Said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox News.
And I think the undertone here is suggesting that if what she said was deceptive, it's because you guys are not good reporters and you didn't ask her the right questions. This was your network spreading misinformation. That's not on us. So head tilt is very consistent with exchanges of sympathy, but also with curiosity or skepticism. So in this case, I think it's a little bit of that skepticism as she's looking at him. Eyebrows come up to place importance on this interview that was on your network, basically suggesting that this is on you, not us. And what does he do? He immediately says that he's got the quote. He's got the exact quote. And she says, go ahead. Like, go ahead and give me the quote, but look at her face as she says that. She is not happy to hear this quote. She's not excited to cover this quote. Because at that very moment, we see an eye block. She literally closes her eyes, and we see a quick lip compression.
And a swallow. Look at her swallow. Oh, good.
It's important to note that her lips don't completely thin out in this case to where they go completely thin, but that's also not something I see very often with her. Even earlier with the mouth shrug, they didn't thin out that much. This could be because she naturally has full lips. It could be because she's had certain procedures that fill out the lips. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. We see tension.
She got that thick lip
around the lips here, right as she says,
DSL, baby, DSL.
The eyes closed, and we see that tension. So tension around the mouth is usually very consistent with something that we're holding in or a disagreement. But it happens in moments of discomfort with a social situation, right? So very likely here that, go ahead, but I don't want to talk about this. At the very same time, something to support that is that we see this quick eye block. And an eye block is any time that we blink a little bit longer than usual. So normally our blinks are very quick, normal blinks. But in this case, go ahead with this very quick eye block. For a second, those eyes stay closed. Now the research on eye blocking is fascinating because it shows that
you want to disengage. You don't want to fucking be there. So you're like, oh, fuck. All right. Let's go.
Children who were born blind do this. And we typically close our eyes when we need a second to focus, either trying to keep a thought in or keep a thought out. So sometimes it happens when we're trying to focus on something and trying to remember what happened, but it might also happen if somebody gives you bad news and you just close your eyes because you don't want to deal with this, you don't want to face this thing. Now in this case, it's not held because obviously it's not this big tragic thing, but sometimes we just see this really slow blink with something that we don't want to deal with. And it looks almost exactly like that with that lip compression at the same time as she goes, go ahead. She does not want to talk about this topic. Then the reporter quotes exactly what the Attorney General said, and the response is a buffet of behaviors. Non-verbally, you'll notice, of course, that her hands shoot up like this by her sides. Now, this is not part of her baseline. Every now and then,
that's like a plea for help. Like, ah, fuck, believe me, kind of thing.
She'll illustrate with the hands up a little bit like this, but to talk like this with the hands up, really not part of her baseline. Now, I will say that there's a slight possibility. I'm not convinced of this, but there's a possibility that she's mirroring the reporter. Because at the end of his question, his hands went up like this as he looked at her with this confused look. In other words, signaling, what the heck is up with that? I don't know what to tell you. What's going on here? Give me an answer. So in her response, maybe a little bit of it is mirroring, but the reason I don't think that's entirely what it is because it stays up there as she talks and it evolves. It moves into something else. So this is her communicating something. So it's likely that in this case, those arms up are a shrug. And remember, once again, shrugs are consistent with a disengagement, a lack of something, a shortcoming. So here it's what? I don't know the answer to this. I don't know how to defend this. What's going on? There's some kind of disengagement. And you'll notice that those hands transform, they don't move, they don't reposition, but the fingers come in like this. And this, almost everywhere in the world, is a sign of something getting tense, aggressive, or uncomfortable. When we're comfortable, the fingers relax. But when we're thinking of conflict, those fingers come in. It's very defensive. It's almost even confrontational. So we see those fingers come in. This is not in her baseline at all. So I think she's lacking information here. She doesn't know how to defend this, and she's feeling the stress of that, the conflict of that. And further proof that she's very uncomfortable defending this topic is, so we see the fingers come in, she illustrates a little bit with those closed fingers, and immediately, at like lightning speed, to the point where the first time I watched it, I didn't even realize how fast she transitioned to this. She talks about what the FBI and DOJ are doing to put bad guys behind bars, and starts these resume statements about all these other things that they're doing that have zero relation to this. And resume statements or convincing statements are statements that we make to make ourselves look better. So something that's about the individual. I'm too honest, I would never do something like that. I'm very generous, I would never steal.
GG. What? Have you been opening up the new EV decks? How much money you spend on this app? Well, I've been playing since, I want to say, three tournaments, 3 seasons of 3 seasons of the ranking modes. And I think that's like 3 months now. So I didn't start with this app in the very beginning because there's so many more people with more cards than me. But I have about 3,000 cards now. I only spent $50. Whatever the Pokegold is on the app, the bonus ones, like the first 5, that's like really cheap. That's what I paid. Only because I was trying to get the EV stuff that I needed. I'm going to get back to organizing the new place. Have a good stream. Thank you, bro. Get some better cards, bro.
On these lines to make ourselves look good. And here, she's providing a resume statement on behalf of the FBI and the DOJ. So in other words, if we look at the nonverbal communication and the verbal communication, the overall package is she's stressed about this. Then it gets to a point where I don't know how to answer this and it's aggravating me. So let me tell you all these other great things the FBI and DOJ are doing to get you off this topic and to see how amazing they are. But it's not working. I quickly want to touch on something that she said right at the beginning of her response as well. And it's when the reporter said that the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, which we're going to hear from in a second, said that the list was on her desk. And Caroline Levitt responds, she was saying the entirety of all the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crime. And this is really tricky language on her part, because Pam Bondi literally responded to a question about the list and said that it is sitting on her desk. In fact, I want you to look at the exact statement that everyone's talking about.
One of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So as you could see, she was asked about the list, not the paperwork, not the papers, the list. And she said, it is sitting on my desk right now. So Caroline Levitt could say she misspoke. What she meant was this. But there's a slight distinction between saying what she meant was this and saying she was saying the entirety of the list. I know that some people use that a little interchangeably. Like they'll say, well, I was saying this, meaning I was meaning this, but it's a sneaky distinction because I have some colleagues and friends who watched this press conference and said, hold on. Caroline Levitt said that Pam Bondi said that the papers were on her desk, not the list. So it's a misrepresentation. There's a little bit more confidence here as opposed to saying, look, yes, she said that, but here's what she meant. That's not the way she's representing this. All right, now we're going to go to the very next day after this press conference. So FBI and DOJ release the report. The next day is the press conference we just saw. The day after that, so 2 days after the report, there's a cabinet meeting in which President Donald Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi are asked about the Epstein stuff. And they both respond. And I want you to look at that response because, again, there's a lot going on. Here it is.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for an American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the step?
Yeah, sure. If
Pam, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also.
Again, I said this yesterday, but yeah, we're gonna keep fucking asking about that. You just dropped this news on us about it this week, so we're gonna talk about it since you bring it up this week. Why the fuck would we want to talk about something that you bring up this week? Your whole administration bring it up this week. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna ask questions about the shit you bring up.
With what happened in Texas, it just seems like a desecration. But you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively. The video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every year, every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
All right, so I want to begin with Donald Trump. So there's something extremely important in when the emotion hits. So as he's listening to the question, we see a couple of things that we're going to talk about as a response to the question that's being asked. But what you'll notice we don't see is any emotional response to the stimulus. So the way that works is usually when we get emotional about something, it's because something comes in, a stimulus, that gets us emotional, and then we communicate that emotion, right? But he only got emotional once he started answering. Before that, because here's the thing, when the guy's talking about Epstein, right? If he's confused by this, angered by this, anything like that he's trying to represent, it would be non-verbally as a reaction to the question. When the guy asked the question, you would see him go, oh, come on, is this guy still talking about this? You'd see some kind of confusion, some kind of anger. You'd see something on his face. But he's just looking at the guy, no emotion. Then he stops Pam, he jumps in, and that's where we see the emotion. So the emotion is associated to the presentation, not to the reaction to the stimulus. That's very important. Now, I will say this. When the guy does say Epstein, the second he says the word Epstein, we do see Trump very quickly look down, then back up. So this could be nothing, because it's not a cluster, but it could also have something to do with, oh, here we go, okay, here we go. We're gonna deal with this thing. So a quick reset or a quick looking away from the subject, like I don't want to talk about this, and then coming right back to it. It could be that. I wouldn't put too much weight on it though, because there aren't that many other things going on in that moment. Notice how towards the end of the question, he perks up in his chair a little bit like this, suggesting that he's ready to dive in. And as Pam Bondi starts to answer, he goes, Pam, can I just interrupt for a second? And he starts answering the question. Now, when he does interrupt, look what happens with Pam Bondi. First of all, she says sure before he's even done asking if he can interrupt. She goes, Pam, can I interrupt? He's not even done. She goes, sure, immediately.
Sure, if I
Pam, could I just interrupt for 1 second?
Leans towards him, putting all the attention on him. Like, she's very welcome that he wants to talk about this. And we even see a grooming gesture. The hand comes up and moves the hair out of the way. Now, grooming is things that we do to fix our appearance and is typically very consistent with us feeling self-conscious.
Right. I was saying the same thing when I first saw her do that. I was saying, she's lying. Look, she's fixing her hair. It's already fixed. She's trying to look kind of innocent or clean. She's trying to look clean. So when she's fixing her hair, it's already fixed. And that's when she's doing that kind of stuff. So I was like, yeah, it looks kind of guilty right there.
All of a sudden, when the attention is inwards, we see these grooming gestures. Now, note that sometimes for women with long hair, moving the hair out of the way is something we call ventilating as well. because whether we're stressed or physically warm, moving the hair out of the way brings more air and circulation to the neck, and it helps us cool down. So it could be related to stress or nervousness, but grooming is usually because the attention is turned inwards. So all this to say, she's very happy for him to take this for a second. All our attention is turning towards him. I even think that there might have been some kind of agreement between the two that if Epstein comes up, he's gonna talk about it and he has something to say. And there's a very, very big clue exactly about that. And the clue is the fact that his answer was such a generic Epstein answer, almost like a prepared statement that when Epstein comes up, here's the answer that I'm gonna give. Because he says, are people still talking about this guy, this creep? And the question had absolutely nothing to do with the creepiness of Jeffrey Epstein. Yes, we all agree Jeffrey Epstein was a creep, that's a given. But the question was specifically about the missing time in the footage that they released from the cell block just earlier this week. There was some missing time. People want to know what's up with that. Reasonable question. And also whether he was affiliated with any agencies, be it domestic or foreign, because there's been a lot of information floating around about
the foreign one being Israel, which is their CIA is called Mossad. So it was Mossad, which is the Israel intelligence agency
as well. So that's what he asked. So with how happily and quickly Pam Bondi turned to Donald Trump, with how Donald Trump perked up, ready to answer this, gave a very generic answer about Jeffrey Epstein, the creep as a whole, not specific to this question, and how he got emotional only with presenting the answer, but not as an actual emotional response to the question. This is a huge indication that there may have been some kind of plan or agreement that when Epstein comes up, he's going to jump in there and completely shut down the topic and say how ridiculous it is that anybody's still talking about Jeffrey Epstein. And that's what we're seeing. Non-verbally, notice how right in the beginning, before he even talks, both his hands come up like this, and then he talks as they open up over here. And this is not an illustrator. Usually Donald Trump does illustrate with both hands as he talks. We see a lot of this, very symmetric gestures. But in this case, he's not illustrating something. They both just come up. Now, palm orientation, the research shows, is not universal. Different cultures use different hand orientations. However, there are some orientations that have universal meaning, and palm outwards is one of them. Pretty much anywhere in the world, wherever you're tuning in from, we recognize this as what we call a stop gesture. When the hand comes up like this, we're trying to stop something or get someone's or something's attention, right? And this is even a reflex that we have. When we're startled, the hand shoots straight up. It's sometimes combined with an oscillating gesture, which is this back and forth, which is more to get something's attention, like stop, look, notice me here. But palm outwards, pretty much everywhere, is stop. With both hands like this, I think this is subconscious him going, stop, we are not going to be talking about this. And then his words reflect exactly that. From that hand gesture, they open up outwards like this, almost in like a little bit of a shrug, like, are we really talking about this guy? But this is quite baseline for him to talk like this. So this, not so baseline, this a little bit more baseline. The rest of the response in the way that he answers behaviorally is very much part of his baseline. This is how he communicates very often when he's upset about something or giving someone a hard time with something. Nothing really stands out from his baseline. So quite a few people sent me this clip and said, hey, is he being deceptive here? And the simple answer is no, he's not being deceptive because he's not even slightly answering the question. In fact, he's shutting down the entire topic. He's not even slightly addressing the specifics of the question, just are people still talking about Jeffrey Epstein really after all this time? And it really misrepresents the situation because after a very long time of waiting, it's just been 2 days at this point since the FBI and DOJ released their report. So this kind of representation of, are we still talking about this guy, to make it seem like it's been so long that this topic's been put to rest? Well, it hasn't. It's been 2 days that this report was released and people still have reasonable questions. A reporter typically represents the population or a certain percentage of the population. If they ask stupid questions that nobody wants the answer to or nobody cares about, their results will speak for themselves. People will not go to whatever source they work for, therefore they will either go out of business or adapt. But if a reporter is asking a question, presumably there's a portion of the population who wants the answer to that question. And in this case, it's a very reasonable question. So I don't think it's reasonable for any representative of the government on either side at any level to shut down a question that's reasonable and that a large population of their country would like answers to. And to me, this answer pretty much dances on the line of gaslighting because it kind of makes this reporter feel like he's absolutely incompetent for asking this question that nobody cares about and nobody should talk about because it's been talked about for years and there's more important things. But all this ignores the fact that people could talk about different things, right? The news could talk about several different topics. And again, if this reporter is asking a question that he believes represents something that the people want to see, I don't think it's up to anyone, whether it's government or just anyone being interviewed, to audit the question and say, nope, that's a stupid question, we shouldn't talk about that. Let the reporter worry about that. There's something else with Trump's answer here that's really important, and it relates to his answer as a whole, the direction he decided to take with the whole answer. And it relates to something that we could find in an amazing book called Spy the Lie. Now, this is an incredible book about deceptive behaviors written by 3 ex-CIA agents who specialized in counterterrorism and criminal investigation. And in this...
written by 3 torture people. They torture people for a living. Yo, that's fucking wild.
They list all the different behaviors that go into a cluster. So whether it's verbal, nonverbal, all the things that we could look for. So a lot of the stuff we've talked about so far are in here. Non-answer statements, convincing statements or resume statements, refusal to deny when you're asked something and you just don't deny and you move on. So a lot of the things we've seen so far, but I want you to listen to this. One of the things in their verbal list of tells is going into attack mode, which I'm going to read now. Being backed into a corner by the facts of a situation could put a lot of strain on a deceptive person and can compel him to go on the attack. This might take the form of an attempt to impeach your credibility or competence with questions like, how long have you been doing this job? Or do you know anything about our organization? Or why are you wasting my time with this stuff? What he's trying to do is to get you to back off, to start questioning yourself on whether you're going down the right path. So once again, Spy the Lie, amazing book. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to get this book delivered right to your door. But that's pretty huge. The fact that it's there, they've captured pretty much the exact vibe of this, where the question is being diminished, saying, why are you wasting your time with this, as a way to wiggle out of answering this question. Now let's talk about Pam Bondi and her answer to the question, which a lot of people have been curious about because she was the one who said that client list was on her desk. So first of all, when she talks about the interview, where she talked about the client list, she does finger quotes exactly as she's saying a client list. So we're going from her being on Fox News, being specifically asked about a client list and saying it is on my desk without any amendments, like saying, look, there's a file on my desk and there may or may not be a list in there. Nothing like that. She was asked about a list. She said, it is on my desk. Now, client list is all of a sudden in quotes. And here we see her passion and her illustrators really come to life. She's driving those points home. She's speaking clearly, and with every word, we see that hand coming down, meaning the file was on my desk. No, that's not what that meant. If that's what you meant, you could have said that back then. And if that's what you meant, you could kind of acknowledge that that's not what it sounded like now, right? You could say, look, I get what it sounded like, but here's what I meant. As opposed to aggressively making it seem like that's obviously what you meant, and we all should have known that when you said it, what you meant was, no. There is no client list on my desk. There's a file that may contain a client list. That wasn't clear, and this passion is her trying to override logic with certainty. Notice the moment she says, meaning the file. Like when I said that, I meant the file, not the list. Notice what happens to Donald Trump. That whole time, he's looking over at her. The moment she says that, he looks over to the reporter.
Meaning the file, along with the JFK, MLK.
Now this has 2 possible meanings. The first one is that he's looking over to the reporter like, got it, buddy? Just looking at him to confirm yeah, that's what she meant. You got it? Almost ganging up on this reporter for asking such a stupid question. The second possibility is what we call a confirmation glance, which is something we very often see when someone's trying to check in on us to see if the story's being bought. So it's very possible in that moment that he's looking over to see, okay, are they buying this? Are they buying that? What she meant was the file, not the list. Then Pam Bondi, with that same amount of conviction and fire in her voice, goes on to say that as for the footage, it all turned out to be child, pee, and we're not going to release that. That's disgusting. And she's talking again, just like Caroline Levitt, like anybody asked to see this. Nobody wants to see this. Nobody asked about this. He didn't ask a single question about the videos. He asked about the missing footage, and he asked about agency affiliation. So Nobody asked about this, but they all seem to redirect and say, we're not going to be releasing that footage. We don't care. At most, we want to know if it points to anyone partaking in criminal activity. Okay, then she says, to him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. And there's a big misconception about no gestures, and there are a lot of people who see this and go, oh my God, the person's being deceptive because they did this with their head. So first of all, we already discussed this. There isn't a single gesture out there that immediately means deception. Least of all this, because we very often use this to emphasize, and also at the very same moment she's saying, I have no knowledge about that. So it's very reasonable that she would say that, and that, you know, this would indicate no knowledge. It's a negative statement. So am I saying she's 100% being truthful? I can't know that. We can never know that with behavior, but this is not a tell that she's being deceptive in that moment. Anyways, she quickly moves on to the missing footage from the security cameras. And here we do see her thoughts falling apart a little bit. We see the blink rate go up. She's fluttering. Her speech falls apart. We see pauses and hesitation.
We released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was.
And yes, this is a cluster. It makes me want to ask her more questions, but let's keep in mind that this could very well also be from the lack of knowledge that, like, here's what she was told and she's not entirely sure. So going back to the fact that I don't know if this cluster is because she's being knowingly deceptive, because she was told something and doesn't really know much about it or doesn't understand much about it, or she herself doubts it, or simply because she knows it's hard to believe. But there's certainly some activity that makes me go, I have some questions about that security footage, for sure. So look, there's a lot going on here. And I completely connect with people who are frustrated by what happened here, because for the longest time, we were told the administration is going to work on getting this information. They acknowledge that it's important. And now that the report came out, and it's very underwhelming to say the least, all of a sudden, are we still talking about this? No.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, we're so pissed off because the timing, it just dropped, and then now we're just moving on. Like, and it just so happened to be the same week, the same couple of days that Netanyahu, the fucking prime minister of Israel, comes and visits the White House for dinner 2 days in a row. And they drop this bomb. Like, that's kind of weird too. All of a sudden he visits and there's no fucking list. You know what I'm saying? That's just weird. Anyways, let's move on. Good video. It's a little long. You could have shortened that up a little bit more. Let's see what we got. There was one that my buddy, I think it's on Instagram. Let me see Instagram real quick. Instagram. He put it on my DMs. Let's see. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Let's go over here. Let's go to this guy. Let's go to his video that I'm trying to find. Oh my gosh, so many fucking things he talks about. Oh my gosh, where is the fucking video? Where is the video? Sorry, we talk a lot of bullshit is what we do. Where is it at? 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 Damn. Okay, here it is. I can't hear nothing.
Whistleblowers from the cabal itself is to work within something they call the rules. And this is very, very important. The rules state that they have to tell us what they're doing. Therefore, if we allow it to happen, we have consented to tyranny, we have consented to enslavement. Now, if you get into the secret history of the cabal, Queen Elizabeth's royal astrologer, a man named John Dee, who is the prototype of the wizard with the long beard, the hat, and what he did was to rediscover, through these ancient documents that were in the Vatican, the technology of how to access what they considered to be spiritual beings that were useful to them, but what we would consider to be demonic or evil beings. These beings need to be accessed through a very complex set of rituals and ceremonies. You cannot just ask for them to show up. You have to follow very elaborate and specific protocols. So John Dee rediscovered the technology of how to draw the magic circles, how to say the right incantations, how to actually do black magic on a governmental level. This is what people are going to have so much trouble with once disclosure happens, is that these people actually practice black magic. One of the...
I mean, yeah, that's what the monuments and stuff are about, right? Like something like that, like the Pentagon building, and like those are all part of like the whole ritual stuff, right? And like architectural stuff like that. That's like the Freemason stuff. Like that's part of all that. That's really believable. I believe it. How they get so powerful in the first place, you know? That it makes sense. All right, let's go to let's finally get an answer with the Epstein thing. Charlie Kirk. Let's check it out. Israel has the client list. Let's go to this one.
Work. Mark, great to see you. Mark, I caught your interview with Megyn Kelly, I think it was yesterday, where you were discussing the Epstein story. This is an unusual one where it seems as if it is growing in its interest and with velocity over the last couple of days.
Hold on. Let's get a little bit light. Because Just Nicky, my boy Nicky, Hollywood, he's a producer. He sent me a track. I want to check it out with you guys. He said it's alright if I play it on stream. Let's hear it together. I'm excited to see what he's creating, and let's check it out together. Let me lower this real quick. Here it is. Lori Loves Me. I think it's just a reference name. We'll check it out right now. Exclusive. Just kidding. All right, let's do it. Just Nicky. Let's go. Fucking fire, y'all. Hey, Just Nicky with the track. That shit was nasty. Good shit. Just Nicky, thank you for letting me play that on stream. That was really delightful to have on there. Alright, now that we got that, I honestly was gonna like freestyle over it, but I was like, nah, we'll wait for that. But let's listen to the Charlie Kirk show. Let's listen to what they have to say about the Epstein stuff. That made me feel better. The song made me feel lighter, especially with the heaviness that we're kind of dealing with in the show today.
Joining us now is Mark Halperin, editor-in-chief of Two Way and host of Next Up on the Megyn Kelly Network. Mark, great to see you.
Hey, shout out Just Nikki. I can't wait for the song to be completed.
I caught your interview with Megyn Kelly, I think it was yesterday, where you were discussing the Epstein story. This is an unusual one where it seems as if it is growing in its interest and with velocity over the last couple of days. What is your analysis as a reporter of how the Trump administration has handled this, and what would you say is the political implications of this?
Well, first of all, nice to be back. And if you want to know why I'm not, as is our usual practice, wearing a ripped and wrinkled T-shirt, it's because I had your friend Michael Knowles on my podcast today. And as you know, he's an Ivy League dweeb. I knew he'd wear a sports jacket. So
that's right. He always dresses up.
That's why I'm overdressed. Okay, so there's at least 4 reasons why you would think the president and the administration would be doing full-on disclosure. First, it's the right thing to do for the victims. Second, they promised that they would be transparent about this. 3,
I'm writing to propose a collaboration that I think could mutually benefit you as a streamer. My goal is to help talented streamers like yourself reach a wider audience and grow your viewership. I have a strong network of gaming enthusiasts and social media followers who are always looking for exciting new streams. Add me to my Discord. My username is KickBooster. KickBooster on Kick. I am broke, brother. I can't afford your services, but I appreciate you being here. And yeah, maybe collabs in the future. I mean, you know how it is with the streaming. It's just trying to get that extra dollar. You know what I'm saying?
I got movement as best we can tell.
I appreciate the hustle.
Certainly many of its leaders, like you, are for it. But certainly, at least I surveyed, I asked everyone on Two Way this morning on the morning meeting, go in the chat if you're a 3-time Trump voter, say what you think they should do, and they're very pro-disclosure. And 4, they've handled it badly in so many ways, and just the politics of it suggests that the way to recover from such a poor handling of it would be to comply with the other 3 things. So what's on the other side? Why wouldn't they be disclosing? And the answers are not great. Either they're trying to protect people, or there's an intelligence connection that they're trying to protect, as best I can tell. I struggle, despite what I said about the two-way community, I struggle with knowing whether there's political damage here for the president. In the midterms, people say, there won't be turnout in the midterms, or his approval rating will go down.
Everybody's approval rating is going to go down on that list. Everybody's involved, all right?
MAGA is very resilient. MAGA fights with the president sometimes and then moves on. And I don't know that this is a qualitatively different case. There's a lot of emotion around this. There's a lot of resonance around it. There are a lot of leaders, including some MAGA leaders who often disagree, who seem to agree on this. There's not much support for the president's position, except for people who he hired. So I don't really know where it's going or how much damage it will do. But I do think that the two ledgers, the two sides of the ledger seem pretty clear, and it's incumbent upon them to not put out a statement or say some things on the fly, but to have a long and detailed explanation of why they're choosing the course they're choosing, because the way they've done it so far is only arousing suspicion.
If I were to become president, the first thing I would do before any policy is give me that fucking list. And I'm giving it to the people. And if I don't give a fuck if they're innocent or guilty, I just put the list out. Names will come up, and shit will happen, and I move on with the policies that I'm gonna put down if I were president. That's how I would win the election. I'd be like, these people will promise you everything in the world. I will promise you one thing: the list. That's what I'm gonna give you.
Your reporting, did the Trump administration think it would go away after a day or two with this kind of Sunday night leak strategy?
They did, and of course, as you know, they're leveraging the credibility of the director of the FBI and his deputy, two people who previously were, in the camp of saying there needs to be disclosure and concerned about a conspiracy. So I think they were trying to leverage them. Did they think it would go away? Yes. Part of the issue here is while MAGA media is quite interested. The dominant media, inexplicably to me, is not interested, even though you've got now House Democrats writing a letter to the president saying he should put all this stuff out. I don't know why the press isn't interested in the story. It's a compelling story just as a story. The whole thing is, but including this latest episode. But also the fact that Donald Trump is split from MAGA. So there are a lot of stories about the MAGA split, but there are not a lot of stories on TV, especially where Donald Trump pays attention, even though he doesn't like the dominant media, he pays close attention. There are not a lot of stories there about the underlying question, which is, where is justice for the victims? And so part of why they didn't think they'd pay a political price, and part of why I don't think they're as concerned as they might be, is this is a big topic of discussion on Megyn's show, on your show, on X, but it's not a dominant conversation, you know, in the country at large in a way that would put more pressure on them.
Yeah, I think that's partially right. I think that it's growing. At least yesterday, I started to get non-political-ish people start to reach out as it's starting to penetrate more circles. So, again, I don't want to spend our entire conversation on this, but I do find it to be interesting. I would say the last point on this, and we'll go to another topic, is this is one of the few instances, and maybe you can correct me, where it seems as if the president is 180 from his base. The only one I could think of is maybe the vaccine and the years after that, when he would go to rallies and sometimes get murmurs and even boos at times. Can you think of other examples potentially where, and how do those usually rectify? They just kind of go away as they're an addressing.
Right. Another thing I have a problem with President Trump is he let BlackRock purchase the Panama Canal, which is, I fucking hate BlackRock. All right.
Right. Well, I know you want to move on, and I've got so much to say about the thing you just
keep
asked.
Going.
But well, okay. So first of all, he's certainly adverse with the base on amnesty, path to citizenship, path to legal status for people who came to the country illegally. So that's another one right now where he's at least flirting with doing it differently than the base. So my monologue on my show today is about how Donald Trump makes decisions. And I think he's an extraordinarily underrated decision maker. And he's extraordinarily different than the other presidents I've covered in many of the ways he makes decisions. And one of those things is no decision's ever final. He'll make a decision, and then he'll make a different decision. And sometimes it's 180 degrees different in response to it. I know that the people who feel passionately about this feel passionately about it. And I understand why. But I also know two other things. Number one, it doesn't affect their lives directly. You could say that it affects their trust in the president or their trust in his commitment to transparency or justice. But in the end, it doesn't affect their pocketbook directly. It doesn't affect their daily lives directly. And so I think the chances of it, so the risks of being at odds with some of MAGA are lower. Number two, whatever reason caused them to choose the...
Bro. I just flipped four heads on the first move, bro. The guy didn't even have a chance to play the game.
They've chosen so far must still be there. I was quite struck, I've said this several times already, the way he tried to shut the reporter down asking about the other day, I thought was a massive tell. It wasn't his usual, you're the fake news, you're asking questions that don't matter. Because as you point out, this does matter to a lot of people who care about him and who he cares about. But if he simply sticks to whatever rationale he has for the course he's chosen, and other news occurs, which has already happened, and it never catches on with the mainstream dominant media, and if he can please MAGA some other way, I think he could stick to this. And again, I'd say, I'd like him, and I'd like the Attorney General and the FBI Director, I'd like them to explain not just the facts of what they did better, but the reason for what they did better. To say there's nothing to see here, we all know, anyone who's followed this at all knows that's not true. So I think that
if there's nothing to see, what are they so scared to show us? Go ahead and just send us if there's nothing on the flight logs, everybody's innocent on the flight logs. Go ahead and put the flight log list out. They're so innocent. Go ahead. Give us the names on the flight logs. They're innocent. Nothing happened, right?
The guy is very understanding when the president explains things, but he hasn't explained it.
By the time the show ends, another American family farm will shut down. Not because they stopped working, but because a lot of groceries. If we're going to stay on the topic. Yeah, and I think that's right. And at least talking about from the base perspective.
Fuck, I didn't get the Flareon.
The younger base in particular, there is this growing distrust of government. And it's actually really bad that people don't trust their government. I missed the country in the 1950s and 60s. I wasn't alive, but this idea that you trust your institutions and they tell you the truth. But this certainly doesn't help, does it, Mark? I mean, for trying to rebuild.
They told you what you needed to hit. That was the biggest propaganda tool right there, because they didn't have no internet. All they had was fucking television telling them what to do. They had to go to war after 1942 and had their economy rebuilt. They were booming their economy, so everything was good. They just won the war, you know? And the war was even a lie in most of the cases to them. You know, it was about killing Nazis. You know, it wasn't about killing Nazis. It was about the economic resources that they were after. It was just like a whole bunch of things, because it wasn't just the Nazis that were fighting. Our president was so racist back then that they denied Japan's allies as allies, because he was like, you're not fucking white. Why would I fucking be with you? There's a lot of misplay in World War II.
Trust and trying to rebuild integrity in our institutions.
I'm going to propose something to you that just occurred to me. I'd like our shows together to do a joint focus group of young people who care about this issue. You and I will moderate. You and I will moderate it together. Let's recruit 12 young people. Let's get them on a Zoom. And let's let the White House hear their voices, because the fact that young people care about this more than older people, which you and I are hearing anecdotally all over the place. I'd love to give voice to that, because that is the big issue. And again, I'm not minimizing the responsibility our society has to the victims at all, but the longer term issue that runs parallel to that is trust in government, and it's a thing that needs to be put in sharper relief. Younger people really care about this more than older people in general, and the reasons for that relate, at least in part, to their incredulity that a government, particularly a government if they're MAGA, who they voted for and trust, could so fundamentally betray what they thought was going to happen and should happen. So let's get it set up. I love that idea. And
let me just elaborate more, is that this is a generation that they view they have been wronged by every power institution as long as they have been alive.
Exactly.
Exactly. And they saw Trump to be different in that way. Please, Mark.
Well, the reason I want to do this so much is because it's crazy. We live in a society with all this media, and you've not heard that a single place, right? Like one or two voices maybe on your show, my show, somebody you and I have talked to. But the country needs to see 12 young Trump voters saying, Mr. President, this is wrong, and here's why. Here's why.
Where are all these? I just see another promotion bot on my fucking streams. Like, it's pretty crazy how many cheap viewers on streamboo.net. Like, I don't need that. I need real viewers.
Feel so passionately about this. That voice needs to be put in sharp relief. It needs to be heard, and I'd like the president to hear it, because I suspect he hasn't.
I want to keep you for another segment here, Mark. And again, this is important, and I'll tell you, it's a more structural issue, because what I am concerned about, and I trust everyone. I trust Kash and I trust Bongino, and I know them quite well.
Yeah, of course.
But I care about keeping the coalition together as a MAGA guy and as one of President Trump's greatest defenders on a daily basis, multi-platform, that I am concerned that the coalition that we have built, especially under 30, is going to be put in jeopardy. And we'll learn a lot this weekend. This weekend we have our big event. We have 6,500 young people coming from across the country this weekend in Tampa, Florida. And we're going to learn a lot when we're there.
Yeah.
And so if you want to come to the focus group down there, Mark, come on by.
Maybe I will. Every time I read the list of who's coming, it appears that everyone you and I both know will be there except for me. So
Well,
feeling
then
a
you
little
have to
left out.
come in. We'll give you a room. Come do the press.
It'd be
focus
awesome to
group.
do that on stage.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, again, I don't know how to run a focus group, so you'll have to teach me. I'm not being sarcastic.
We'll do it together.
It seems as if it's an art to be able to run it as much as
Yeah.
it is a science, right? Because
Yeah,
you don't want.
Yeah, it is. And I've done hundreds of them, so I wouldn't say I was great in the beginning, but I get how to do it now.
You said something briefly on the Megyn Kelly program. The media would have kind of a straight shot here at a story with Trump, right? Here's this Epstein thing that has some velocity. Here is Trump. Why has the media ignored this for so long? What is that all about? I mean, I don't want to try to get into like the dark, wacky stuff, but
But that's where it is. The dark, wacky stuff is where we gotta go. Nobody wants to go there. At least nobody in high positions.
it's true. The media, the mainstream media, not internet media, seems like meticulously uninterested in this.
It's been a mystery to me for the entire time. There are dark possible explanations that I don't want to give voice to necessarily. Perhaps I will as I ramble here. I don't know. It's an incredible story. And currently there are stories about the quote unquote divisions with the MAGA base, because of course they love that. But why the press is not covering a story about the documented abuse of children and the politics of it, of how it's gone this long. And you've got all sorts of Trump angles that are appropriate to discuss. So I don't know. I'd say the same thing about the Joe Biden acuity thing and the doctor taking the fifth. If I were running a news organization like the New York Times or NBC News, with the exception of continuing to cover the tragedy in Texas, I would have led with those two stories. Those are massive stories, and yet they're barely covered today. And I normally can explain the press's behavior. I can't explain those two. I cannot.
So more broadly here, I want to talk about on the Democrat side. Is there any strategy on the Democrats to try to be interested in this, or are they too also? What are you seeing?
Jamie Raskin, your favorite House Democrat, I believe. I know you like Nadler too, but Jamie wrote a letter with 5 or 6 other House Democrats, sounding like Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon, saying everything should be released. So they've entered the fray, and again, I would think the press would write about that, and there was a little bit of coverage of it. But here you have a rare moment of bipartisan moral clarity, saying this needs to be done for the sake of trust in government, and the sake of transparency, and the sake of the victims, and a shared populist line that elites should not be protecting elites, and yet
that's such a good point. Let me interject. That's what I think this Epstein thing is a unique example where there's like 5 or 6 elements that kind of combine, because it does have this. Not only was he a creep and a pedophile, which there has been a yearning in the right-wing base that there has been some pedophilic activity that has not been held accountable. As you know, that has been a legitimate concern for over a decade. And then number 2, that he probably was an intelligence asset, either for the American government or for MI6.
I know Biden was touching kids all crazy. The way he was smelling these motherfuckers, it's not a motherfucker. The way he was smelling these kids' hair on fucking camera was kind of crazy.
Or for the Saudis, or for Mossad, or whatever, right? We don't know. Number 3, of course, the way he died, which was not exactly transparent. And then, of course, he's a billionaire, or allegedly. So there's this populist thing, which is like, oh, if you have money, you can buy your way out of no matter what evil actions that you are in.
And that the elites will protect each other.
Yeah, no, that's right.
To allow them to get away with things, and no one has documented the full impact of the failure for a single Wall Street executive to be indicted after 2008. No one has documented how that affected the psyche of the American people. But this is of a piece with that. And, one of the things that I work as hard on as anything as a journalist is I've lived in Boston, Washington, and New York my whole life, okay? But my obligation is to not reflect the point of view of those three elite places.
It's important and hard.
And yet, when I say the obligation to the victims, and when I say the responsibility to not have elites protect elites, I feel it in my core. Like that is a human resonant thing for me, in part because I feel both things myself, but in part because I know tens of millions of people around the country feel it passionately. And to have this administration, which promised otherwise, to not do it, just is going to incite the worst speculation about what the motive
Gotta
is.
run.
And elites protecting elites is not great.
Got to run. Transparency is the answer here, and it's not too late to fix it. Mark, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. See you in
And
Florida.
See you in Florida. Can't wait. We'll have to get dinner. SAS2025.com. All right, I am heading to Tampa. SAS2025.com. We have Hegseth. We have Megyn Kelly. We have everyone. Kristi Noem, and yes, Mark Halperin too.
Oh my gosh. Okay. The smoking gun in the Biden cover-up. Yeah, we know that though. That was already old. Let's see. Protest throws projectiles at cars after ICE raids. This is an hour ago? Ooh. 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 Oh. Dang, they're in there. I don't know why there's no sound. Oh, they got arrested. Damn. Alright, Temple and bench curb. Oh, Pac-Man. Let's do Pac-Man. ICE runs over protesters. Alright, let's check this out.
Powder. It's a delicious, calming hot.
Let's see, go past these ads.
Munitions. We are going to look at the White House roundtable involving African leaders, which was a complete and total humiliation for Donald Trump. We're going to hear from Aaron Parnas. We will hear about Kristi Noem's latest declarations regarding the Texas floods. And we're also going to talk about a new Biden cancer conspiracy theory. So it is, I think we should record and save today's show rather than doing what we normally do, which is after it's done being recorded, we immediately hit the delete button and then that's it. We'll keep this one. So let's start with, not metaphorically, but literally, Trump's ICE running over protesters. Trump's ICE drove a vehicle through a crowd of protesters in San Francisco. A woman was clinging to the hood. She was thrown off, almost run over. This happened in the United States of America in broad daylight outside of a courthouse. And under Donald Trump's orders, we now have ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, really behaving like an occupying military force, which of course is the authoritarian dream. We saw outside the San Francisco Immigration Court a black ICE SUV plow through at least 6 protesters trying to stop what they saw as the illegal and immoral arrests of an immigrant. People were thrown, pepper spray was deployed, and at one point an ICE agent actually brandished a rifle and pointed it at protesters and pointed it at the press. Authoritarians love this stuff. And this is arguably the most violent encounter in San Francisco yet. And that says something, because under Trump's second term, ICE has been escalating and escalating and escalating, physically dragging people out of public places, detaining immigrants who voluntarily show up to hearings, and now, yes, running people over with cars. Here's a little video just to give you a sense of the atmosphere and the chaos. So you see the van here. You see people on the hood. You see them plowing through individuals. We now have a number of individuals sort of pressing back on the hood as the van moves.
Sorta. They're fucking laying on that bitch. What are you talking about, sorta?
forward.
That's not the smartest thing to do. Is fucking don't be in front of a moving vehicle, because that shit could run you over like nothing.
So as you can see, complete and total chaos. There is another video where I guess the van encountered another group of protesters, and it only got even more insane.
What are you gonna say? What are you gonna say, motherfucker?
And there goes the van. So listen, it is not lost on me that you are not allowed to just block traffic, right? So I know people are going to write in and go, well, actually, David, you know, it's true that even though ICE is being a little bit aggressive, you're not allowed to impede traffic. I get that, and I have said many times, when protesters shut down a bridge to make a point, and then commuters are just furious, you're actually turning people against the cause you are advocating for. I've talked about that before. What we are seeing here, of course, is desperation, not in the general sense. Let's shut down a bridge to inform people about climate change. This is ICE is doing specific actions at the direction of Trump.
They're lucky they're in California too, because I think in Florida, they're allowed to fucking run over people if they get in front of them. I think.
Are arguably against the law. We are not giving people due process. We are not even doing what Trump said was going to be done. And this is desperation. And the reaction from ICE is to go even crazier and to start running people over. In a sense, protesters were doing what Americans have done since the founding of the country, which is we link arms, we use bikes to block, we shout slogans. It is not allowed to block traffic, but also there was no violence here. And ICE resorted to violence. ICE agents charge in and they slam protesters to the pavement, and they pepper spray and they scream obscenities. And the police reportedly stood by and watched. And so one of the things I think is important to understand is that if we step back from individual tactics, which you may or may not like, what authoritarianism looks like is not just the use of state violence, but the glee with which the state actors seem to carry it out, the boldness, the impunity, and the message is, we can do this to you, nobody's going to stop us. San Francisco PD is not going to stop us. And it is not just a few rogue agents, it is really policy that's going on here. And this time it was ICE driving over protesters. Next time, what will it be? I don't know. So you don't have to support blocking courthouses. You don't have to support blocking streets to see what's wrong here. You just have to have the belief that government shouldn't run people over in the street, that federal agents supposedly carrying out the law shouldn't be screaming obscenities at civilians and waving rifles in public, that if you show up to your immigration hearing, you shouldn't be kidnapped on your way out. So what Trump's vision of law and order has turned out to be doesn't include much law. It's certainly not orderly. It's not safety. It's not justice. It's about power and control and generating fear. And that is exactly what they are succeeding at doing. A bizarrely orange Donald Trump admitted he has no idea what's going on in his government, and he's not even curious. When Joe Biden was president, Donald Trump insisted someone else is really in charge here. And yet, whenever Joe Biden was asked about an incident or a policy, he knew. He would speak slowly. He was forgetful. I don't think Biden should have run for re-election, but Biden was in the loop. And he clearly knew what was going on in the country and around the world when he was president. Trump has now again been asked for the second day in a row, who ordered the munitions to Ukraine? What did Trump say? You're going to have to, I don't know what technological tool, some kind of descrambler, you're going to have to do some hard work to figure out what Trump's saying, because Trump first says, I haven't thought about it. Essentially, I don't care to figure out who made the decision about the Ukrainian munitions. But then he goes back and forth about, no, if someone did it, I'm going to find out, and it probably was me. I will be making the decision in the future. But he's being asked about a decision that was already made. The guy doesn't know what's going on. And so it's not a conspiracy to say who's really running the country right now. It's just a practical matter. Listen to this.
Yeah, please.
Sir, yesterday you said that you were not sure who ordered the munitions halted to Ukraine. Have you since been able to figure that out?
Well, I haven't thought about it because we're looking at Ukraine right now and munitions, but I have not gone into it.
So he says, I haven't looked into who made the order, but we are looking into it now, as if it's something that they might do but hasn't yet been done, but it has.
What does it say that such a big decision could be made inside your government without you knowing?
I would know. If a decision was made, I will know.
I will know. I would know, I will know. Is he talking about the past or the future? It's not clear Trump knows what this is about.
I'll be the first to know. In fact, most likely I'd give the order, but I haven't done that yet.
Wait a second. So now he's saying it certainly wasn't him who gave the order on the Ukrainian munitions. There is no charitable interpretation here. It's either memory and cognition problems, and this is fundamentally a brain problem, or it's Trump is completely checked out of the presidency. He's just not in charge. He doesn't know what's going on. Both are very problematic. Peter Doocy asks regarding the investigations now going on into former FBI Director James Comey, former CIA Director John Brennan. Do you want to see them behind bars? Trump's response, yikes.
James Comey and John Brennan now under criminal investigation related to the Trump-Russia probe. Do you want to see these two guys behind bars?
Well, I know nothing about it other than what I read today, but I will tell you, I think they're very dishonest people. I think they're crooked as hell, and maybe they have to pay a price for that. I believe they are truly bad people and dishonest people.
There you go. Trump knows nothing about it, but it may be time for Brennan and Comey to pay a price. Spoken like a true authoritarian. Trump asked a really reasonable question. How did you calculate the tariffs of this latest round? When you sent out the letter to Tunisia about 25%, and you sent out a letter to Serbia with whatever percent that was, how did you calculate it? Trump says the calculation was common sense.
Sir, can you explain how you calculated your latest round of tariffs? Was there a formula that was used? And do you expect any of these countries to...
He said, whatever the fuck I feel like, bro. That's the tariff. Common sense is what I think.
These tariffs as well.
Can you imagine a formula?
The formula was a formula based on common sense, based on deficits, based on how we've been treated over the years, and based on raw numbers. And we're going to have a couple of more coming out today. Brazil, as an example, has been not good to us, not good at all. We're going to be releasing a Brazil number, I think, later on this afternoon or tomorrow morning.
Brazil is part of BRICS, by the way, which is what? Brazil, India, China, Russia, and South Africa. They all teamed up together, so on an economical level. So we're going to give them extra tariff for that, I believe.
Common sense. When the guy with no common sense says he's doing economic policy by common sense, you know we're in trouble. And he, by bringing up trade deficits, it still seems that it's possible.
All right, I want to hear more about, like, BRICS. The rise of a new global order. Let's see.
1 in 10 babies in the U.S. are born prematurely. Many of these babies need around-the-clock monitoring in busy neonatal.
This is a story about how the world's most powerful, richest country is slowly losing its influence.
And it's evident here.
We can see across Brazil, thousands of Ford cars almost disappeared.
Meanwhile, China's BYD is becoming increasingly common.
Ford left a plant abandoned. BYD, they modernized the plant. They are now producing electric cars from Brazil.
It's evidence of the growing connection between Brazil and China, the B and the C of the BRICS Plus coalition. This is a group that hopes to rival the US-led G7.
The most important emerging economies in the world are the four BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, and China.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day.
This mantra,
America first,
has created an opening.
The trade war increased the solidarity between BRICS nations. The BRICS are now emerging as really the only global forum that can stand up to Trump's trade war.
They want a multipolar world in which there are multiple centers of geopolitical influence.
But can these countries unite to become a meaningful global force? To answer this, it takes an understanding of how economic power collided with circumstance.
If this shit happens for real, we're kind of fucked. I'm not gonna lie.
That the group can overcome some big hurdles. But first, the acronym BRIC was coined in 2001 by Jim O'Neill, who at the time was an economist with Goldman Sachs.
I thought it was quite clear that so-called emerging markets were going to become more important to businesses. And so I sort of played around with the idea, and I wrote a piece called "The World Needs Better Economic BRICS," and the rest is history, so to speak.
Eventually, it went on to be popular among the governments of these countries, who held their initial summit and established BRIC in 2009.
The first ever BRIC summit is getting underway in Russia.
In 2010, South Africa was invited because it was a major economy on the African continent. Over time, more countries started expressing interest in joining BRICS. China became a major trading partner and a major foreign direct investor in many countries across the global south. And a lot of countries saw this as an opportunity to elevate themselves geopolitically, as they were not part of other multilateral groupings such as G20, for instance.
BRICS is an inclusive formation that has the ability to change the trajectory of the global south.
4 members joined in 2024, and this year Indonesia joined as well. So now there are 10 countries.
10 countries equals economic power. Look at how the original BRICS have grown compared to the G7 in terms of global GDP since 2009. It surpassed the G7 in 2019. Now add in the expanded lineup, and its share is nearly 40%.
In terms of GDP by purchasing parity, it has overtaken the G7 countries. The trajectory is clear. BRICS countries are growing faster. Their populations are growing as well, for most of them.
This boom in population and wealth has also given the group more political might, which in turn has made more countries interested in joining.
BRICS' main objective is to challenge the established world order, which appeared after the end of the Cold War. Russia is definitely interested in more member states of BRICS, partly to offset its relative diplomatic isolation after 2022.
Power was aided by circumstance. Sanctions imposed by the US and Europe on Russia are one reason why trade among the bloc's first 5 members rose 40% to over $700 billion from 2021 to 2024. Sanctions also contributed to an increasing amount of all this trade being done in local currencies. Look at the red line. That's use of the yuan bypassing the dollar in China's overseas transactions.
China represents more than 35% of Russia's external trade.
BRICS has even talked about a common currency.
Overall, BRICS countries support reduced trade in US dollar as a tool, as a method to reduce overall Western economic dominance in the global economy.
China's influence within the BRICS Plus club cannot be overstated.
China is the biggest, most powerful, richest country in the BRICS group. So the BRICS works as an instrument for China to improve its economic and political power on the global stage.
Since before the beginning of the BRICS, Lula has always been enthusiastic about China. Brazil, under his first presidency,
China and Russia together is trouble for everybody, for us especially.
2004 was one of the first countries to recognize China as a market economy.
Lula realized that China and Brazil had very complementary economies. China wants to have access to a huge consumer market.
China also has really bad IP laws, so like they'll steal from whoever they're doing dealings with. Like they'll steal their ideas and make it cheaper for them, and then sell it back to you.
And it needs food security that Brazil can provide.
This graph shows Brazil's exports to the US. Now we're adding in exports to China. From 2009, China was Brazil's top exporting partner, and now it imports more too. So it's all good, right? Well, there are some hurdles. For Brazil and other BRICS Plus nations, the geopolitics of trade is complicated.
Trade relationships within BRICS are not as developed as, say, within the EU. BRICS is not a trading bloc or group. It wasn't meant to be one. Each country is dealing with the issue of tariffs individually.
Brazil doesn't really want to pick sides. Brazil wants to have the ability to trade with the US, trade with China, with the European Union, all at the same time.
A variety.
You're either with us or against us, Brazil. Just kidding.
Tensions between different BRICS members have kept the group from forming a united front. But they have managed it with the New Development Bank, which finances projects across the global south and provides loans with fewer economic and political conditions compared to the World Bank.
It's not focused on advancing Western values and human rights issues in the same way.
Small at the moment, but with potential for growth. So even as the US steps back from its role as a global leader, the disparate nature of the BRICS Plus coalition is its weakness. Although size gives it clout and opportunity, divisions may keep it from bending the global order towards its goals.
I think it's difficult for the BRICS countries to really pursue a joint path on the things that really matter for them collectively as well as for the world. It's very effective as a symbolic grouping, but how that evolves is probably going to depend to some degree how on all their individual economies do, how they perceive the US is moving economically and politically, and how seriously they themselves want to move on big global issues like climate change, infectious diseases, global trade, and so on.
Okay, so they're still developing, but it's still an issue that we gotta deal with. Because if they get too much power, then we're out of luck. We're shit out of luck for sure. Candidate only goes off on Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro, and he's defending Trump, who he now supports, over the Epstein debacle. All of our politicians have been blackmailed by a foreign state. Zionist sympathizers demand that the government get involved with Andrew Tate.
I am a Riva, and I was taught how to pray Salah. That means every single time I pray,
the person who told me gets the reward.
5 times a day, from Fajr to Isha.
If you want to support
What is going on?
back when you're done, please check out the description section of this video to support the channel. There's been a lot of controversy over Donald Trump and his team denying all existence of child abuser Jeffrey Epstein having a client list, despite them previously publicly declaring that they had the files. Trump himself is rumoured to be on this list along with many Western politicians. It's been implicated that Epstein was a Jewish supremacist Zionist with close ties to the Israeli government, and that he was blackmailing Western politicians under the orders of Israel after they took part in disgusting acts on his island. Candace Owens, a former Trump supporter, has condemned Donald Trump and the people making excuses for him covering.
I'm kind of confused. Are Muslim women allowed to do this? Is this like something they could do? I don't never seen this before like this. That's pretty interesting. This is interesting, just like an appearance wise. Kind of caught my attention.
Horrific crimes against women and girls. She also made the claim that the Israeli government is involved in Trump's decision to do so. And it's no surprise, nor is it a coincidence, that the very same satanic people who are carrying out and supporting the Gaza genocide are in on the Epstein cover-up. And let's not forget, they're also obsessively anti-Islam. Let's look at the first clip where Candace addresses Ben Shapiro.
I'm starting to wonder if Trump's entire purpose here is to convince the populist movement that wars are actually okay, because we're going to actually package the idea of war a little bit differently. And that's something that I'm not going to accept anymore. Trending right now, which I'd like to respond to, is this clip of Ben Shapiro, and he's defending Trump, who he now supports, over the Epstein debacle and him wanting to move on from the Epstein debacle. Let's play it.
However, when President Trump speaks for the American people more generally, and he says, guys, don't we have better things to do? You can understand his irritation. The man is trying to negotiate an end to a war in the Gaza Strip. He's trying to negotiate an end to a war in Ukraine. He's attempting to revivify the American economy. He's attempting to crack down on illegal immigration. On a list of American priorities by the polls, the Epstein-Maxwell case comes in pretty close to zero, just on a list of priorities.
The first thing that I would like to say is actually I would put this at number 1, okay? If our entire DC swamp is operating like a swamp because all of our politicians have been blackmailed by a foreign state, and this blackmail effort is so sophisticated that it includes Hollywood, people that are coming out and supporting certain politicians. Perhaps they're also blackmailed. These people were at parties, maybe these people are on tapes, and maybe these people are pedophiles on top of all of that. I would put that at number 1, because that would mean America is compromised. The second thing I would like to say that I no longer accept, and you can let me know if you agree as Trump supporters, is this idea that he's trying to end wars, okay? He's trying to negotiate peace in the Gaza Strip. You're not trying hard enough, right? If you are trying to end what is happening in Gaza, you can stop it abruptly by ceasing to send Israel weapons, by ceasing to send them money. Trillions of dollars we've sent to Israel since
Candace Owens is speaking facts, bro. She's speaking facts. Like, come on.
Probably even before then. I don't even know. Since before it was nation, maybe we were sending money.
Or not even. It's this is pretty fucked. That's definitely number 1 on my list.
In another way, through another means. You could do it like that when you're the person funding it. They can't afford to keep this up if America cuts them off. And then suddenly everybody appears to the negotiating table. This feels like we are being lied to. It feels like actually the deal is, I may be already invested in Gaza Strip. Maybe that's why I kind of let the cat out of the bag when I said we'll put Trump hotels here. Maybe also I let the mask slip a little bit when Jared Kushner was out there saying how much the property could be worth as soon as the war started. Like, didn't even wait. Like, you couldn't even wait a month to say, that could be worth a lot of money, right? It feels like maybe the deal has already been done. And what you're saying is, I will try to keep the populists calm. I'll try to keep America calm while we pretend that we're negotiating, but get this done as fast as possible. Get this ethnic cleansing done as fast as possible so that we can then say, I did it. I negotiated peace. After we ethnically cleansed Gaza, you're going to swoop in and tell us that you negotiated this thing. to its end. I don't buy that anymore. I'm done with that. I'm done with these excuses.
The fact that radical Zionist Ben Shapiro is pushing this new narrative about Epstein's client list not existing just further implies that the Epstein cover-up is on behalf of Israel. Shapiro's alarming argument is we should stop talking about child trafficking because most people don't care. There is literally no evil this...
I will say, isn't it their country that marries the kids too? Like, that's kind of weird.
...and his Zionist peers won't engage in to defend Israel. And
by there, I mean Muslim. Like, they don't they marry girls at like 9 years old and stuff like that? That's fucking weird too. I'm not gonna lie. Sorry.
Genocidal actions. It wouldn't surprise me if it later emerged that Ben Shapiro was in on the whole Mossad Epstein blackmail operation somehow. These people go on about women's rights in the West, yet they're refusing to protect their own women. By denying the list exists, they're denying the abuse these women and girls suffered, which is disgraceful. As Candace stated, the Epstein list should be #1 priority, as it not only reveals the perpetrators who are guilty of abuse, it ensures that the female victims get justice, all the while exposing the Israeli blackmail operation behind it. Candace was also correct to call out Trump for trying to remarket war as being acceptable after faking that he was anti-war before he was elected. As she said, Trump has no intention to bring peace to Gaza because if he really wanted to, he could do so instantly by simply stopping US funding and weapons being supplied to Israel, because this would take away Israel's ability to continue the genocide and instead force them to the negotiation table as they would have no other choice. She also claimed that all this talk of peace from Trump is simply a distraction to buy more time for Israel so that they can finish off their mission to ethnically cleanse the Palestinian people. As difficult as that claim is to stomach, I can't say that I disagree. Candace even suggested that Trump and his son-in-law already had property development plans for Gaza a month into when Israel started this genocide, way back in 2023. If so, that is
well, yeah, I mean, that's definitely... We have the contracts to rebuild Gaza. That's already known. Like, that's how we make our money. Or that's how they make their money, right? So that's already kind of like a known thing. Whether Palestinians stay there or Jewish people stay there, that doesn't matter. We're still got the contracts to build Gaza up. Whoever gets that, whichever person gets that country, or sorry, part of that area, whoever gets Gaza, we still got the contracts to build it up.
Because it would mean this was going on while Joe Biden was still president, which suggests that Israel had pre-planned the Trump presidency before the election even happened. Well done to Candace for denouncing her support for Donald Trump and making it clear that he is not deserving of any sort of peace prize whatsoever. Let's watch her address Andrew Tate in context to Trump's Epstein cover-up.
That very same media is telling us not to pay attention to what's happening in Gaza, and if you do pay attention to what's happening in Gaza, it's because you're a terrorist. Like, if you pay attention to actual terrorism, that's wrong. The same people, by the way. Do you realize what's wrong with that picture? Or when they're telling you that these obvious villains like Bibi Netanyahu are heroes? And it's the same thing, by the way. I watched the Zionist sympathizers demand that the government get involved to deal with Andrew Tate when he, as an American citizen, landed on American soil. Government, help us. Has Andrew Tate been found guilty of anything? No. But no, like, he's a bad guy because they're looking into him. And there are these clips I can show you of Andrew Tate saying that he's a pimp. And so that should be enough. Government, get involved, get him out of here, even though he's an American citizen. Remember that? And then actually now those same people are saying Epstein, who was actually convicted of crimes and against minors, just move on. Okay. So what? Maybe he's holding a whole blackmail. Just let it go. We've got bigger fish to fry. And I found it very interesting when Andrew Tate tweeted that he has now official proof that some of these women that have come forward were being paid by non-governmental organizations, by NGOs, that say that they're combating human trafficking. I'll let you listen to what he says in his own words, because I'm telling you this is interesting.
The girl who initially accused my brother and I of human trafficking 3.5 years ago has just admitted to DCAW that she was paid in advance before she made the police report, $100,000 to make the report, and the money came from a USAID-funded NGO designed to combat human trafficking. Why would you pay somebody before they make a police report $100,000 to combat human trafficking unless you were actually trying to set us up? She then admits that after she took the money, she flew here, made the police report, and after only 3 days in Romania, she was flown to the south of France. The flights, hotels, and budget for her stay there was all paid for by the same NGO. And we have the fucking paperwork.
What has emerged to me is very clearly a picture, a network of influencers who I believe are being paid to go after certain people. And I think that we did not realize that a lot of these quote unquote MAGA influencers are maybe actually being funded through a lot of organizations, non-governmental organizations. But when he said this, it made me go, I think we have been infiltrated as soon as Trump won the election, essentially. I think that there have been kind of a mirage of influencers that have arrived, and we maybe thought that it was all organic, and maybe it's actually not so organic. And maybe they have kind of been forced into the public sphere, and we were like, great, and cheering them on, and maybe we've all been duped.
Man, make me a plant. Make me an industry plant, bro. Give me the money. I need money. Just kidding. Give me the real followers. Let's do this the old school way.
Muslim woman, I am not pro Andrew Tate, especially due to all the racist right-wing nonsense he repeats. But Candace did make a valid point regarding Tate when she said that the Zionist sympathisers, along with the mainstream media, only seem to selectively care about trafficking when it suits them. When a Muslim guy like Andrew, as un-Islamic as he is talking about converting to Islam and supporting Palestine at the height of his fame, all of a sudden these charges appear, which he claims he has proof were part of a targeted campaign that was funded by American NGOs. And in Epstein's case, these very same people just run with the US government's contradictory narrative. The evidence of his trafficking client list no longer exists after it was explicitly stated that it did, because it serves Israeli interests. And she said Epstein is much worse than Tate, as he was convicted and Andrew was not. And if we link back to Ben Shapiro, he will lambast Tate for his charges, while at the same time making excuses for his fellow Zionist Epstein like a complete hypocrite. And if you just look at the personal attacks on Candace in the Western media and from the Zionist enablers on social media, simply because she speaks up for Palestine, it's clear to see how sensitive, petty and insecure these people are when it comes to controlling the narrative in favour of Israel. This just further confirms the claim Candace made about a network of high-profile influencers being paid to push this agenda by attacking anyone that opposes the genocide in Gaza. But let's not let Andrew off the hook completely. Unlike Candace, he has yet to condemn Trump. And even though Tate has been vocal about opposing the genocide, he continues to support Trump, who is the guy that's funding it, which for me is a hypocritical position. Add that to Tate continuing to parrot far-right propaganda, which originates from Israel as part of their strategy to dehumanize Muslims to justify the killing they're doing in Gaza, and it just raises suspicions that Andrew looks to have also been compromised in exchange for his freedom. After this whole Epstein cover-up, it could not be any clearer who the bad guys are. So if you still support Trump, Netanyahu and Israel, you're effectively condoning what Epstein did, no matter how you try to dress it up. Thank you for watching. Make sure to join my free Telegram group via the...
Let me get one thing straight for everybody. These guys have been fighting forever, alright? Ain't no small propaganda gonna change my mind on these two guys. These two religions going at it next to each other. Alright? They've been doing it forever. They've been killing each other forever. They're both not fucking innocent over here, alright? No one is innocent. Alright, what did Hitler think of Zionism? Let's see. Let's see. Jolteon. Tucker Carlson. They're still lying about Epstein. Let's see this. Let's see. Oh, let me kill this guy first because he's being asshole wasting my time. So I'm gonna waste his time more. Alright, let's see.
All right, so in today's video, CNN is finally admitting the truth about the flash floods that occurred in Texas. And the second story is Jeffrey Epstein. It's now being reported that the Department of Justice just told the court they're still reviewing the files. What is going on? We're going to get to both of these stories in this video, show you what both sides are saying, and as always, give you the bottom line.
And that's what this is about at this point. It's about the local officials. What did they do? Not the state, not the federal government. Because on July 2nd, 2 days before this, the state is already sending out press releases saying, be careful. You've got this weather storm, you've got this storm coming through, raising the alarm bells. The alarm bells are starting on July 2nd. And the Texas Department of Emergency Management is moving in resources. They're moving the resources in, saying to the locals, we have things available for you. We have emergency response available for you. So get prepared. And this was a warning on July 2nd to this community. Now, what happens after that? Where do those warnings go? Starting on July 2nd, how does those warnings, did they ever get to the locals? And I think that's the biggest question. And much like you, yesterday I had the opportunity to head down towards the river and talk to people, and most of the people I talked to said they did get the alerts, but they didn't take them seriously. First of all, it was in the middle of the night, so most were sleeping. It was a beautiful day before the rain started on July 3rd.
Okay, so let's make sure you guys understand exactly why I am saying that CNN is finally admitting the truth. It's their MO. When a story first comes out, they go to blaming President Trump immediately without any of the facts. It's all opinion-based and propaganda, okay? And they find their unique way of doing it. They try to bring on experts that will say whatever they want them to say, pretty much. But if you just wait long enough, you'll see that they'll finally start telling the truth. And that's what you just heard in this clip. Now, just to make sure we understand this story and where we're at, July 2nd, the Texas Department of Emergency Management issued a warning. So, yeah, what were the local officials doing? That is an appropriate question. But more importantly, there's something called reality. If people are not going to listen to the warnings, what else do you expect is going to happen?
Down at the river. And keep in mind, so many people were in town for this. So many people came from outside this area in their RVs. How are they supposed to know that something could go wrong? And so that's the big question. What efforts did the locals make? At this point, it doesn't appear to be that they were making any efforts. And we'll see.
That's one thing, like the police could have probably done something more, but then or some type of, I don't know. You have a massive warning, right? But it's like no one's listening. Even the police aren't getting involved about what's going on with it. I don't know. It's hard to say. How do you get so many people that don't believe in something to believe in something?
Answer those questions. At this point, they said they're focusing on the recovery efforts and the families and trying to give them some closure.
Now, when it comes to CNN, it's not just that simple. Yes, they are shifting blame to local leaders. And yes, they are admitting that it really has nothing to do with what the state or the federal government has done. However, they still find a way to slip in the blame when it comes to Kristi Noem and President Trump. And before we get to what she had to say about all this, let me play you this clip from Anderson Cooper where they are alleging she purposely delayed FEMA's response. Take a look.
So according to 4 officials inside FEMA, that federal response may not have been as fast as it might have been. They say that a new rule that any expenditure over $100,000 needed sign-off from Secretary Noem slowed the federal response. These sources tell us that FEMA's deployment of urban search and rescue teams, which are typically deployed in anticipation they might be needed, instead was delayed until Monday, 3 days after the flood. Now, a source also tells us that a request Texas made for FEMA aerial imagery to aid in the search was also delayed, waiting for Secretary Noem's approval. Now, additionally, multiple FEMA officials say that they were taken aback by the agency's relatively limited response in the immediate aftermath of the disaster. CNN has reached out to FEMA for comment. So far, no reply from the agency. However, a DHS spokeswoman more generally told CNN that FEMA is, in her words, quote, shifting from bloated DC-centric dead weight to a lean deployable disaster force that empowers state actors to provide relief for their citizens.
All right, so bottom line to what CNN is saying, they're basically making the point that because Kristi Noem signed a policy when she assumed the position, that any disaster relief that supersedes $100,000 requires her personal signature, it delayed FEMA's response. Now, hold the thought, and then let's exercise some brain cells. Did the people on the ground, did the victims need FEMA the morning of? No. FEMA is not responsible for rescuing people. You know who is? The Coast Guard, the National Guard, and local first responders, who all were there on July 4th in the morning. I believe the National Guard deployed the following day, to be more accurate. So this is totally misleading by CNN. Now, I want you to hear Kristi Noem's response, because she didn't even offer an explanation. She just called the network trash, which I do agree with her. Take a look.
CNN is basically got a report accusing you of slowing the process. Would you like to respond to that?
Well, there you go. Fake news. CNN again is absolutely trash what they are doing by saying that, because our Coast Guard, our Border Patrol, BORTAC teams were there immediately. Every single thing I was on, they asked for, we were there. The governor and the emergency management director, Nim Kidd, are fantastic. And nobody there has said anything about that they didn't get everything that they wanted immediately or that they needed. And I'm proud of the work that we've done to support that. But, you know, we've got flooding going on in New Mexico as well, North Carolina. So I've been visiting with their leadership team and spent quite a bit of time on the phone yesterday with the New Mexico governor, getting them resources as well. And that's what we do. And, you know, the fact that CNN is continuing to be political and push out fake information and false information and lies is not shocking, but it's a disservice to the country. It's a real disservice to the country because people start to mistrust anything that comes out then over the news. And then, well, that's true. Yeah, but they just don't trust anybody anymore.
Of course we don't trust what mainstream media is telling us because I just showed you how much they lie. You know, isn't it fascinating that if you just step back and observe CNN and their behavior, remember what happened when President Trump ordered the military airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities? What did they say in the beginning? Oh, was it accurate? Oh, did it really do damage? Oh, did they find the right place? Then as time went on, even the experts started to push back on CNN. I mean, this is just an utter embarrassment for all journalists out there. They claim to be in the news business, but they're in the propaganda business. And it's not just them, it's also Democrats. Here is Chuck Schumer, who's supposed to be the top leader of the party, saying this.
It's essential for all New Yorkers who need to be protected against extreme weather like flooding, who need the warning, which obviously didn't occur in Texas, that bad, dangerous weather is coming.
Okay, so just pathetic. Before I give you guys my reaction, I want you guys to hear a quick message from today's sponsor, Aura. Now, here's the interesting thing. Democrats still want you to panic about Doge having access to your personal data. But let's be real, it's not the government you should be worried about. It's the professional hackers who have already stolen millions of identities and are weaponizing it. That's why I use Aura, a full security system for my digital life. VPN, credit monitoring, identity theft protection, and parental controls all in one. That's why when I signed up, I found my info, full name, email, even parts of my social security number already on the dark web. And Aura didn't just flag it, but they removed it. And that's why I've got 24/7 monitoring, fewer spam calls, and real-time alerts on my bank accounts. Whether you're trying to stay anonymous or just protect what's yours, Aura has your back. So just go to aura.com/Savori for a 14-day free trial and take back your digital freedom today. Okay, so that's just a blatant lie. I know it, you know it, everybody knows it. And I would imagine the families that are in that local area, what would they say to Chuck Schumer based on his response? Because what I don't hear from people who live in that area, from the interviews I've seen, I don't hear them blaming local officials. They understand what went on here. This is a natural disaster. There's only so much someone could have done. You've got all the warnings one can get, except the siren. But again, a perfect storm. People are not familiar with the area in the middle of the night, and you have this fatigue from even local people where they receive the warnings all the time, but it never gets to this level. So they're like, we'll see what happens. But saying all that out loud as a Democrat would mean you'd be, I guess, agreeing with President Trump. I don't know. But one thing's for sure, Democrats are convinced this is the message to score political points. And just to show you an example of that, here is Gavin Newsom doing just that. Take a look.
After all, the natural disaster that occurred and it continues to occur and unfold in Texas may have humbled them. You know, that image you saw, I don't know if you woke up like I woke up. God is my witness. First image I saw this morning, turned on MSNBC, and it was a photograph of that beautiful 13-year-old girl and her 11-year-old sister that were found clutching each other's hands, washed down the river, found dead.
Yep, that's Gavin Newsom doing what he does best, which is playing politics and trying to capitalize on the moment. And it's just disgusting that these politicians are literally trying to weaponize the tragedy of what took place in Texas in order to smear conservatives and undermine the president of the United States, as I like to say. Now, let's go to our other story, because this is truly starting to undermine President Trump and his accomplishments. And that is this continuous Jeffrey Epstein debacle, where I just believe truly he and his team, they've handled this incorrectly. Now, listen to Charlie Kirk and Mark Halperin give you the bottom line on what should be done moving forward. Take a look.
The fact that young people care about this more than older people, which you and I are hearing.
Hey, we just watched this. We just watched this earlier right now. But yeah.
Anecdotally all over the place. I'd love to give voice to that because that is the big issue. And again, I'm not minimizing the responsibility our society has to the victims at all. But the longer term issue that runs parallel to that.
One thing about the flood thing, I'll say, I didn't know that the other National Guard and all that stuff was there beforehand. But I'm like, why did they help evacuate the homes? I mean, I don't know. A beautiful day and you don't expect rain to come and that take you out like that. I don't know.
Is trust in government, and it's a thing that needs to be put in sharper relief. Younger people really care about this more than older people in general, and the reasons for that relate, at least in part, to their incredulity that a government, particularly a government if they're MAGA, who they voted for and trust, could so fundamentally betray what they thought was going to happen and should happen. So, well, the reason I want to do this so much is because it's crazy. We live in a society with all this media, and you've not heard that a single place, right? Like one or two voices maybe on your show, my show, somebody you and I have talked to. But the country needs to see 12 young Trump voters saying, Mr. President, this is wrong. And here's why. Here's why we feel so passionately about this. That voice needs to be put in sharp relief. It needs to be heard. And I'd like the president to hear it because I suspect he hasn't.
Yeah, so at this point, I'm totally convinced one or two things are true. That President Trump is not getting the right information from the people he is surrounded by. That's number one. Or number two, he is aware of this, and what Bill O'Reilly is claiming might actually be a true reality. That he has to protect people that he knows that are not actually criminally a part of this whatsoever, but they are affiliated with Epstein in some capacity. And so it's guilt by association, which means their reputation would be on the line if these files were released. In case you didn't hear that from Bill O'Reilly, here it is.
I talked to President Trump man to man, eye to eye, on St. Patrick's Day about this and the Kennedy files and the King files. It was all one conversation. And he said, and I agree, there are a lot of names associated with Epstein that had nothing to do with Epstein's conduct. They maybe had lunch with him or maybe had some correspondence for one thing or another. If that name gets out, those people are destroyed because there's not going to be any context. Media doesn't care about context. So you can't do that. You can't destroy human beings by putting out the files, whatever they may be. But you certainly can have Attorney General Bondi say, this is what we know. And
yeah, fuck them, bro. Put them on.
We're going to protect the innocent, and he's a heinous individual.
Okay, but even if we follow that logic, if you guys recall, how many people were associated with Diddy and the stuff he was involved in? How many people were associated with R. Kelly, who did go to prison, and nothing happened to them? And it's interesting that when you're this powerful, you can truly shut down a case like this, because that's what's unfolding in front of our eyes. And for the record, we want President Trump to be successful. But at the same time, we can't control who he is surrounded by, who's consulting him, or ultimately the decisions that he makes. And some decisions that this president is going to make, or his administration, will backfire. And that's exactly what's happening with this whole Jeffrey Epstein debacle. Does it pay the bills at the end of the day? No. Is this the last thing people are thinking about before they fall asleep? Absolutely not. So in the end, 10 years from now, is this really going to matter? Probably not. But at this current time, when you ran on the promise of being transparent, you ran on holding people in the government accountable and prosecuting them for covering things like this up, and now you're not really going to do that, it's a problem. And to make matters worse, Mr. Victor Davis Hanson came out on Glenn Beck's show and had this to say that really makes this entire thing troubling. Take a look.
Well, you summed up exactly what Pam Bondi and the FBI and people said to us in February. That's exactly what they said. And then something has changed in their attitude once they got into the data, the material. And the conspiracists say, well, you know, there's officials involved. I don't know if it's, I think it's more maybe the donor class or people across the political spectrum that are very powerful, influential. And some of them were very terrified of Jeffrey Epstein.
All right, so at this point, I don't think his explanation is anything new, but it continues to confirm that even some of the brightest minds in politics and history is even calling this out for what it really is. And whether or not President Trump believes this is the right thing to do, we can give him the benefit of the doubt. But what's the explanation for the victims? What are we doing to prosecute people who are actually involved? Because it's one thing to protect people who we know have no criminal affiliation with what went on, but what about the people who did? Where are those prosecutions? Where are those investigations? Because if you're just going to shut it down and nothing else is going to happen from this day forward, yeah, I would probably say that's a bad look. Now, here is Alan Dershowitz, who, as you know, is one of the best legal minds in our country, who was actually being sued over this whole Jeffrey Epstein situation. And he claims he's seen the names and he knows exactly what's going on. Take a look.
This is not an opinion. This is a fact. I have seen, remember, I was accused falsely on the Epstein, and ultimately I was completely cleared. The woman admitted that she may have mistook me for somebody else and withdrew all of her lawsuits. And so from day one, from the day I was accused, I said I want every document out because I knew every document would prove I was innocent. So let me tell you, I know for a fact documents are being suppressed. And they're being suppressed to protect individuals. I know the names of the individuals. I know why they're being suppressed. I know who's suppressing them. But I'm bound by confidentiality from a judge and cases, and I can't disclose what I know. But I hand to God, I know the names of people whose files are being suppressed in order to protect them. And that's wrong.
Just out of curiosity, without names, are these politicians, business leaders, both?
They're everything. And let me tell you, a lot of them are, at least one of them is somebody who was accused. Others are accusers.
So the most important question at this point is, where does the administration go from here? Now, if I was advising President Trump and his team, which I'm in no position to do so, but if I was, I would tell them to just release everything that they have. And why is that? Because what makes this case so different than R. Kelly, than Diddy, than Harvey Weinstein, than all these other true crime serial killers, all this information we have access to, but we can't get access to Jeffrey Epstein? And the more you guys try to fight against that and hide it and shut it down, you will run the risk of killing your credibility when it comes to transparency. And I thought that's the whole point of this administration, or at least one of the core principles.
Exactly. You guys are hiding way too much. Way too much hiding. I'm like, all these other people we can actually get, and we can't even get the Epstein list. Like, come on. We got all the other lists. Why not this list? We know why, though.
This administration. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's his decision, and ultimately we want the president to be successful. So we'll see what they decide to do and if they hear or react to the backlash.
We want total transparency on this. Every single document, no redaction. That's what I've said from day one. I waive any of my rights to privacy. Anything there is about me, I'm happy because it will be exculpatory, because I know I haven't touched a woman other than my wife from the day I met Jeffrey Epstein. I don't even hug people, but I was falsely accused and I was able to prove it. And I was able to prove it through documents. And I want other people to be able to disprove false accusations through documents but these documents are being suppressed and withheld.
And then to add more to the drama, the Department of Justice and FBI, they were just in court this morning, and they told the judge that they're still reviewing the records and files of Jeffrey Epstein because currently there's a lawsuit between Judicial Watch and the federal government because they have refused to release any documentation. And matter of fact, the guy who runs Judicial Watch was on Fox News last night, and here's what he said.
I think they decided for political purposes they didn't want to include the individuals who are on these lists and put them in the public domain. And they were concerned that some of them may not have done something warranting the disclosure. I mean, that's the most charitable interpretation. You know, but there is a list. There's no doubt. I mean, they talk about in the memo they wrote, well, there's no incriminating client list. Well, what does that mean? I want the non-incriminating client list.
Right. Give us whatever list you got. Just let it fly. If it's not incriminating, then what do you worry about? Right? If it's not incriminating, then go ahead and give it to us. Why not? Why not? If they're innocent. That's what I said before.
Of course, a client list is a term of art, right? Where are his associates? Where is the list of contacts? You know, we asked under our FOIA lawsuit, Pam Bondi, give us the documents that you say you were looking at. Give us documents about the release of these documents. You said the FBI was obstructing the release. They came back to us and said, we have nothing.
All right, so bottom line is, this isn't going to prevent President Trump from implementing his agenda over the next 3.5 years, but it will make it almost near impossible for American people to trust the Department of Justice, let alone the FBI. And
I never trusted the Department of Justice to begin with, all right? Even under Trump, even under Biden, the DOJ is pretty much a tool for weaponizing against the other political party or whatever they need to do, right? Department of Justice is a joke.
That is something that he promised he would fix. And so this, in my opinion, is making it really hard for him to do so, especially when I know that Dan Bongino is the guy that's not making the decisions. We know that it's not Kash Patel making the decisions on this. This is coming from Pam Bondi, President Trump, or his advisors.
Exactly.
So it's not a good look at the end of the day. But I want to hear from you guys in the comments section as it relates to both of these stories, starting with CNN and their misleading ways. As you know, they try to lie about Kristi Noem and frame it as a way of her purposely preventing disaster relief in regards to FEMA responding to Texas. And let's not even mention how they had to admit that it really had nothing to do with Kristi Noem and President Trump as it relates to this disaster. So there's that. And then this entire Jeffrey Epstein situation. Let me know your thoughts so far in the comment section below. All right, so in our next video that you're going to want to watch, Democrats have suffered another major blow.
All right, so I'm actually going to stop the stream a little bit early. I know I usually go till midnight, but I have a podcast with David Apodaca at 8 o'clock in the morning. We're going to be filming for like 2 hours around that time, so I have to get up kind of early. I don't want to be over sleeping on my alarm, so I'm going to end it early so I could get an hour of decompressing before I go to sleep, because I get worked up with these videos mentally. I will see you guys tomorrow at 8 o'clock if nothing else is happening. As far as like getting here at 8 o'clock, like today, it was a little bit hectic because there was so much going on today. I just wanted to make sure I got here, and I was able to make it like around 8:10 p.m. But I'm gonna try to get back on 8 p.m. again tomorrow. Stay hydrated, stay fit, go exercise, touch some grass tomorrow, smoke some grass. All you gotta do. I'll see you guys tomorrow, 8 p.m. Peace, guys.
Mainstream media, experts,
sharp relief, it needs to be heard, and I'd like the president to hear it, because I suspect